All right, Student Senate, if we'll go ahead and start finding our seats, please. I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right, we'll move into first roll call with Sadie.
All right. Abdullah. Almadani. Beasley. Belina. Betancourt. Bond. Booz. Bowers. Brentz. Burke. Carlson. Carr. Clark. Clements. Coggeshall. Colasico. Cruz. Dowd. Frederick. Gallardo. Gillespie. Glasscock. Hamlin. Hines. Huffman. Jabin. Jonak. Kelly. Kerperin. Kidd. King. Koger. Kurzweil. Coleman. Lomchek. Lux. Matos. Meinhardt. Oxner. Orzakowski. Pelton. Payton. Phillips. Rivera. Rodriguez. Reichert. Seidel. Slichter. Smith. Snyder Ben. Snyder Blaine. Spellman. Wallace. Ward Kelly. Ward Shalen. Watkins. Whitmer. Zimmerman. Oh, okay. There's 42 present, 8 excused, and 7 absent.
All right, with that, we'll move into first open period. Our first open period speaker this evening is Dean John Buckwalter, Dean of the College of Health and Human Sciences.
All right, is this working? Can you hear me? Very good. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak with you today. My preference is, instead of me rambling on about things that I might think are important, is I'm going to be brief. I'll talk a few minutes about what's some highlights in the college, and then I'd like to open it up, and you can feel free to ask me anything you would like. Graduation's just about a week away. How many people are graduating here? None. Okay, that's a bit depressing. But anyways, well, for us, this will be the first graduation for our college under the new name, College of Health and Human Sciences. It became effective June 1st, and so anybody that graduates from the college now will get a diploma that says Health and Human Sciences. It really it was a big deal for us because I think it really better reflects the types of programs that we have in the college. We have a very large presence in health. About half the students in the college want to do something related to health, either directly upon graduation with their bachelor's degree. We license healthcare workers in dietetics, healthcare professionals in athletic training, couples and family therapy. And then the human sciences actually better describes the other aspects of our program. Human ecology, while if you understand what it means, was not one of the most accessible names. And the common nomenclature today really is human sciences. And if you look at CIP codes, which I know none of you pay any attention to CIP codes, you will see that our programs, many of them fall under a CIP code for human science. So we're excited about the new name. I think it makes us more accessible to both prospective students and the general public. And so we're excited about that. We have a new program that many of you may have heard about that we're in the process of getting started, and that's a physician's assistance program. Anybody here want to be a PA? No, again, oh, one. Okay, so I was getting ready to go 0 for 2, but we have one person. So by this time next year, we're about ready to start the first classes. January of 2021, the first class of physician assistance program here at Kansas State University should start studying and doing all the things that you do in a PA class. Along that timeline, we've got an accreditation visit, and on June 1st and June 2nd of next year, it's about 6 months away, and we're vigorously preparing for that accreditation visit. We've started hiring faculty. Already, we hired a faculty member from the Mayo Clinic who has started, who is our clinical director. We hired a program director a little over a year ago who spent her career in the Army and then got into PA education. She's been fabulous. And then we hired a couple of other, we've got a medical director who's came to us from the local hospital, and then another academic director who came from the VA hospital in Topeka. So we're excited. We're pushing full speed ahead, and we're excited to start taking those applications. Really, in the summer is when we'll start taking applications for that program. So we're excited about that. We also have this is really very recent, and it hasn't been approved by the Board of Regents yet, but we're excited to forward on to the Board of Regents a new bachelor's degree, undergraduate degree in integrative physiology. And so we think that'll be a real winner. It's a common trend at other universities that and in colleges that look like us, and so we're excited about that. The other thing that we had some good news this year, many of you know that the enrollment at Kansas State University actually went down this year. College of Health and Human Sciences actually bucked that trend, and we were up by about 100 students. I would expect that to continue as we go forward, both because of the enrollment management strategies that have been put into place at the university level, but then also some of the things that we're doing at the college level. I can tell you just a little snippet of data. Last November of 2018, we had somewhere between 40 or 50 prospective student visits that we hosted in the college. This November that just ended a few days ago, we had about 140, 150 visits. And so I think we're excited about that. I may stop there and open it for questions. If there's other things that you would like to know about the college, I'd be glad to try to answer those questions.
Right, are there any questions for our speaker? Senator Beasley.
So, why are these new hires being brought on in anticipation of the accreditation?
Well, in order to become an accredited program, you need to demonstrate that you actually can deliver the product that you say you're going to deliver. And so having these new faculty help in the process of getting things ready, going out and getting the clinical sites that we're going to need in order to provide the opportunities that you have to provide as part of the PA program. There will be some additional hires as we get closer to having that first class, but that's why they were hired, is in anticipation of getting the program started.
Further questions? Chair Watkins.
Does that accreditation come from Kansas Board of Regents or the Kansas Board of Human Rights?
Yeah, so the accreditation visit that I'm talking about is there's an organization called ARC-PA. Don't ask me what ARC stands for, but in essence, they're the accrediting body that accredits all PA programs nationwide. So that's the accreditation visit that we were getting ready for.
Further questions? Intern Coordinator Howie.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. I was just wondering whether students from Kansas or K-State specifically would be given a preference for the PA program, and if you knew how many students would be
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great question. So the short answer is there will be no preference for Kansas State University students, in the sense, you have to remember we're a state institution. We serve the people of Kansas, and so if you go to Fort Hays or Emporia State or KU, God forbid, and you want to come to our PA school, you will have you get the same consideration as a K-State student is, and that's the way it has to be. Right now, there's one PA program in the state of Kansas, Wichita State. The prospective PA students at K-State would not be happy if they were to learn that Wichita State students got preference over them. And so no, there won't be any preference. Right now we're projecting about half the students will be in-state students, half the students will be out-of-state students. And we're going to have a focus in our program that really is geared towards rural health care professionals. We know there's a huge need in our rural communities around the state of Kansas, and I think we can fill that niche in maybe a unique way that Wichita State can't. with the profile of our student demographics, we are pretty big in Western Kansas, some of the places that we're talking about, and I think that's the opportunity to do that. When the program is all up and running, we project 44 students per class will be admitted into the program, and so at any one time, it's a 27-month program, so you need to know that a little over 2 years, but in essence, at any one time, there will be about 90 PA students on campus. There will be a couple months period where you actually have 3 classes enrolled, but that's just a short period. So you can think of it as about 90 graduate students at any one time. And the degree is actually a master's degree, a master's of physician assistant studies. That's the terminal degree for that field.
Further questions? Chair Booz.
I also believe that we were working on a public health degree. I see that failing in Senate. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so you're correct. We were working on a bachelor's degree in public health. It made it through all the way through the process, and then lost by 4 or 5 votes. It was voted down in the faculty senate. It is a fabulous idea. I think that there were some disagreements on what the program should look like across the university, but we're not giving up on it. In fact, I met last week to talk about kickstarting that and going through the process again. It's too good of an idea. It's a need in the state of Kansas. Our students want that degree. There's employment opportunities that you can get with that degree that are harder to get without it. And so one of the things we teach our students is how to be resilient and, to overcome adversity. And so I told the faculty, I said, this is our chance to model that behavior. So that's what we plan to do.
All right, any further questions for Dean Buckwalter? Senator Carlson.
Yeah, so please don't give me a quiz on the actual curriculum, but the idea is if you think about what we do in the college, we have some very applied physiology classes, whether you're talking about cardiovascular physiology, the physiology of nutrition. And what we did is basically we took a lot of pre-existing and existing classes and repackaged them into a way that would really focus on an integrative physiology approach. That's what it is. It'll be similar to some of the other degrees, but distinct in other ways. And if you're interested in that, as soon as it passes the Board of Regents, because that's where its next stop is, I will send you out a curriculum guide and you can look at it.
Time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator Beasley. It's been moved and seconded to extend time for questions by 5 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, you can continue.
Okay, so that's what it is. It'll be a little bit, out of kinesiology, a little bit out of the, nutrition, and then there's some other classes around the university that will also be part of that degree.
Further questions? Senator Beasley.
So you spoke on how the PA programs will be gearing towards rural healthcare, providing rural healthcare.
Yeah.
How is the university going to, as a land-grant university, trying to address issues within its communities? How is the university planning on directly advocating for improving health besides preparing
PA students. Yeah, I mean, we have a large presence across the university in health. You can think about the Johnson Cancer Center and the College of Arts and Sciences. One area that you're probably not as aware of is the cooperative extension model that we have here at the university, where we actually have, we touch every county in the state of Kansas, and we do nutrition education in those counties. We talk about obesity. There are programs that we put in place. SNAP-Ed is one of the things that runs through the university. And so there are programs through cooperative extension that touch all those. And when I think about health, I think sometimes we need to think a little bit more broadly and not just a medical focus per se, because really health is about much more than physical health. It's about emotional health. One of the PA faculty that we have hired, just to give you an example, has a portion of his time allocated to cooperative extension, and he has a specialty in psychiatry and mental health, and so he'll be providing support around the state related to mental health issues. If you're in a farming community and things aren't going real well on the farm, you've got financial issues. We do financial education in the College of Health and Human Sciences. You're probably having also, if you're married, you're probably having issues related to, your spouse. And so all of those things kind of go into it, and all of them are things that this university has a presence and can deliver programming to every county in the state of Kansas. And so I would point to cooperative extension as one of the really important ways that our university has an impact on the health of the state of Kansas.
Any further questions? All right, seeing none,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Our next open period speaker this evening is Alex Bontrager, President of PAWS.
Hello. Hi, my name is Alexandria Bontrager. I'm a senior in microbiology, but I'm also the founder and president of PAWS, which is Peer Advocates for Mental Wellness and Success. You can see our logo on my lovely shirt. Today I'm going to be talking about seasonal affective disorder. How many of you have heard of this or know what it is? Okay, so some of you, that's really good. So hopefully those of you who don't know about seasonal affective disorder can gain something from this. And if you already know about it, I'm going to teach you slightly a little bit about the physiology. So we're going to talk about that integrative healthcare right now. So seasonal affective disorder is classified as a mood shift during season changes. So if you know about it, it's mostly associated with the change in seasons in the fall and winter months, but it can also occur in the summer and spring, which I just found out recently and thought was very interesting. So it usually happens in the fall and winter, but it's associated with changes in exposure to light. And when you have changes in exposure to light, you have less production of vitamin D, which you're probably familiar with. Some people say, like, stick your palms out in the sun and you'll make more vitamin D. Or people go on vacation because they want more vitamin D. But when you have less production of vitamin D and less exposure to sunlight, you also make less serotonin. And if you're familiar with mental health in any regard, you know that serotonin is very important for mood regulation. Furthermore, one thing that's very interesting, I'll tell you something about serotonin that you might not know. Most of it is synthesized in your stomach, in your gut, by the bacteria that live in your body and do things. And that serotonin is moved to your brain to do things. And that serotonin in this gland called the pineal gland is changed to melatonin at night. And if you know about melatonin, you know that sleep is important, and sometimes we take melatonin when we want to sleep better. So if you're not making enough serotonin, you're also not converting it into enough melatonin, and you're going to have changes in sleep at night. So that's why the physiology works. Next slide. So talking about getting more vitamin D, so some sources obviously are going to be exposure to sunlight, and although today was a good day, the sun was out, sometimes in the wintertime you don't have access to sunlight, so if you can get more sunlight, that's a good option, so like do stick your palms out if you can. However, you can get it from food sources. It's a fat-soluble vitamin, so you're going to find it in fatty foods, so that's going to be like fatty fish. You can also find it in eggs and mushrooms. And then you can also do supplementation. I will say, because I am not yet a physician, I cannot recommend that you take a vitamin D supplementation. I personally do. Talk to your doctor if you want to take a vitamin D supplementation. And what vitamin D does, so why it's important for you, it assists in the absorption of calcium, so it's important for strong bones, so that's why they put vitamin D in milk for one reason. That's why they put vitamin D in milk. It's good for your bones because it helps you absorb calcium. It's also required for your immune system function, so on your immune cells, there's a vitamin D receptor that's required for proper function of your immune system. So who knew that your vitamins were so important? And then supplementation with vitamin D was associated with improvement of depression scores in a study done in New York, I believe. It's in that source, which we'll show at the end. I don't remember exactly what it is. So with light exposure, this is one way, another way to treat seasonal affective disorder. And light exposure helps regulate your circadian rhythm. Raise your hand if you've heard of that. I love that. There was a Nobel Prize given for it, I think 2 years ago, and it was given on the same day that I adopted an alternative sleep cycle because I needed to study for an exam. And I was like, not a good idea. Probably shouldn't do that. So the circadian rhythm is the natural cycle of physical, mental, and behavior changes that the body goes through in a 24-hour cycle, which basically means when we're talking about seasonal affective disorder, with that exposure to light, like I was talking about before with the melatonin and the serotonin, that's very important. The light exposure is going to help you make that serotonin, which is like a daytime chemical. But then also when it's converted to melatonin in your brain, nighttime chemical. Furthermore, the circadian rhythm helps you make things like cortisol. You've probably heard about this as being like a stress hormone, but it's also a hormone that helps you wake up in the morning. And so you always have a spike in cortisol in the morning. So if you go to the doctor and they want to test your cortisol, they do it in the morning because it naturally spikes and wakes you up. So you get like stressed when you get out of bed naturally. That's just how it works. So if you have disruptions in this, however, you're going to have disruptions in like your wake and sleep cycles, and that can disrupt your production of serotonin, your conversion to melatonin, and a whole lot of other things, which is why we need to take care of it. So some more things about science that you might not know. When light reaches your retina is connected to that gland that I talked about before that converts the serotonin to melatonin called the pineal gland. And then the pineal gland, okay, sorry, just kidding. So the retina connected to the pineal gland, it signals the awake mode, and that's what's going to make hormones associated with energy, metabolism, like I said, cortisol, serotonin. And then when you don't have light, it signals your sleep mode, so that's when you're going to have that conversion to melatonin. And when you have the improper conversion of serotonin, you're not going to have enough melatonin. But also something that you can do if you do suffer from seasonal affective disorder or you like to sleep well at night is avoid light in the evening time when it's supposed to be dark outside. So this can be like with your phones. You've probably heard of blue light blockers. With a blue light blocker, one fact that I found very surprising is for every hour that you're exposed to blue light before bed, it delays melatonin release by 30 minutes. So if you're on your phone for 2 hours or your computer for 2 hours for bed, you have a 1 hour delay in release of melatonin, which that's not great for sleep, which we don't love. So next slide. Okay, so symptoms of seasonal affective disorder, very similar to symptoms of depression. So if you're not familiar with those, these are generally applicable as well. So symptoms are feeling depressed, lack of interest in activities, feelings of worthlessness, changes in sleep, and changes in appetite. In the fall and winter months, we tend to see more eating and more sleeping. In the spring and summer, we tend to see less sleeping and less eating, but it can be different for each person. And then feeling lethargic. And then it can make pre-existing conditions worse. So seasonal affective disorder is classified as a type of major depressive disorder, but if you have other types of depressive disorder or bipolar disorder or anxiety, those can be worsened in the seasonal months. Okay, so interventions. So we talked about vitamin D being really important, light exposure being really important for seasonal affective disorder. So at home, things that you can do yourself or things you can recommend to people you know who struggle with seasonal affective disorder would be to get more light exposure. So be outside more if it's possible. It's cold and it's dark sometimes, so that's not helpful. So you can do light box therapy, which again was found to be effective in that study, which is actually in Maryland. But light boxes are like $30. So if you're poor like me and you can't do that, getting more vitamin D might be an option. So that would be eating more foods rich in vitamin D, which are like eggs, fish, mushrooms, etc. And then asking your doctor about vitamin D supplementation because that can help a lot as well. And then some things that you can do at home to help. We talked a lot about the circadian rhythm and the regulation of hormones. There are some things that you can do yourself to modulate the release of these hormones. So this would be self-care, which sometimes we're like, does that mean a face mask and a bath bomb? No, not always. So it also means taking care of your physiology in general. So like you need to go to sleep. I'm looking at all of you college students. You need to sleep, you need to eat well, exercise. Those things are like general things you should do for yourself. And having sleep hygiene helps you like take control of your circadian rhythm. So this basically means go to sleep and go to bed at the same time every night if you can. Avoid those lights before bed so that you have the proper conversion to melatonin. If you can't avoid lights, do blue light blockers. You can like have applications or switch to night shift mode. That helps as well. Exercising in the morning is helpful because that gets that cortisol pumping in the morning. And so it's like we're awake and it's time to go. And then as you go through your day, it says this is very awake mode. And from there, it knows to like shift to sleep mode as you go throughout your day. And then doing activities that bring you joy. So this is like decreasing your stress, but also making you feel like a human can be helpful if you have any sort of symptoms of depression. That can be helpful. Journaling, like gratefulness journaling, has been proven to be super helpful with people with heart disease, but also just people in general. So noticing things that you're grateful for in your day takes advantage of this thing called the it's a psychology thing where when you notice things, you notice more things. I can't remember what it's called right now. The confirmation bias. So that's when, if you're looking for positive things, your brain is going to release dopamine when you find positive things, and then it's going to look for more positive things, and then you will have a more positive disposition. So being grateful helps you be grateful, which is great. And then mindfulness and meditation activities are also helpful. Next slide. Perfect. And then outside resources. If seasonal affective disorder is disrupting your life in a way that you do not feel like you can manage, psychotherapy has been proven to be super helpful. So counseling services at K-State, you have 4 free visits in a calendar year. There's also I'm out of breath. There's also local resources like Katie's Way and Pawnee. And then you can talk to your doctor about supplementation and treatment. There's also online things that you can do. There is an app called Keep Appy, which I have a promo code for you for a free month of membership. It's called Pause. There will be a podcast released on it next week, I think. But if you would like to download that, please do so and listen to the podcast as well. Are there any more slides? There are those. Right there. One thing I will mention is we do have a podcast episode on seasonal affective disorder. Our podcast is called Pausecast, and it's on Spotify, iTunes, and SoundCloud right now. We have episodes with Jansen Ali and with Jack Dunfield as well. So if you want to like listen to your own, you can. But if you want to listen to me talk when I'm not like shaking, you can also do that as well. So I think questions from anyone?
Are there any questions for our speaker? Caucus Leader Kidd.
It's called Keep Appy, so it's Keep Appy. Yeah, and there's a free version of it, but then there's like exclusive features that you can get a free month for with the pause code. Yes.
Further questions? President Penny.
Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about like Pause as an organization, just like very quickly, and if that's something you want to get involved in or meetings, things like that?
Yeah, so Pause is Peer Advocates for Mental Wellness and Success. We have 2 branches of Pause. There's certified peer educators, which can do things like give presentations. So I have a national certification through the Bacchus Initiative, which means that I can act as an intermediate between a friend and a counselor. So I'm not a counselor, but I have like enough training to give you resources. So that's one thing that Pause does. Another thing is we have a student organization where it's open to the public. Anybody can come, and from there we sort of combine voices and figure out what directions people want to go with mental health. And from there, we can do service projects. We can reach out to community members. We do a lot of outreach. I don't know if you're familiar with Pet Away Stress. When we bring the dogs to the quad, that's something that we do. But our main goal is to reduce the stigma associated with mental health, because about 1 in 4 people struggles with a mental illness at some point in their life. And so it's important for us to start these difficult conversations, because it's kind of in the dark, but a lot of people are struggling with it. And if more people talked about it, then we could get the help we need and it wouldn't be as big of a problem. So.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for coming. Okay, and with that, we'll move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Chair Boos. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Announcements for the week. First, From our last time, the Safe Ride Review Task Force is seeking members to provide feedback on current Safe Ride operations and the future of this privileged fee entity. The form's listed there if you're interested, and I believe those are due tomorrow at 6 p.m. Second, Nathan is seeking some speaker suggestions for first open period. Please email him before you all leave for winter break if you have any suggestions, as he'll schedule the rest of the term out during that time. Proxies for the week are Booz for Al Abdullah, Bowers for Bond, Clements for Snyder Bin, Cogshell for Seidel, Dowd for Oxner, Kerperin for Hines, Kurzweil for Kidd, and Ward Kelly for Cruz. SGA Member of the Week is Attorney General Peter Moyer for his 2 years of service in the role of AG and Instagram cooking stories and a sense of style. That's verbatim from Senate Exec. The quote of the week is, "The more you praise and celebrate your life, the more there is in life to celebrate." Oprah Winfrey. Sorry, let's clap for Peter. Moving on to commendations, is there a motion to consider Resolution 49? Senator Beasley. It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 49. Will the author please come forward?
Whereas the Hallmark, I'm loud. Whereas the Hallmark Case competition hosted in Kansas City, Missouri, showcased 3 teams from Kansas State University College of Business Administration. Whereas these teams presented their case findings to a panel of marketing and strategy executives at Hallmark corporate headquarters. Whereas finishing in first place was a team of Alyssa Zur and Michael Hansen, both seniors in marketing. Whereas finishing in second place was a team of Natalie McMay, senior in entrepreneurship, and Ellie Radarn, senior in marketing. Whereas finishing in third place was Analia Hobbs, sophomore in marketing and economics. Whereas these students demonstrated an exemplary commitment to furthering their education through professional development and experiential learning. Be it resolved that Section 1 Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends the Hallmark Case competition finalists for showcasing the foundational values of the College of Business Administration and Competition. Section 2, upon passage of the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of the resolution shall be sent to Alyssa Zur, Michael Hansen, Natalie May, Ellen Radarn, Analia Hobbs, the Marketing Department Head Ether Swiley, Entrepreneurship Department Head Chad Jackson, the Eggerly Family Dean of the College of Business Administration Kevin Gwinmer, and the University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 49? Senator Coker. It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 49 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 49 is approved. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 50? Intern Phillips. It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 50. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 192050, commendation to the Iowa State University Marching Band by Nick Beasley. Whereas Bill Snyder Family Stadium hosted the 103rd annual Farmageddon football game pitting the Kansas State University Wildcats against the Cyclones of Iowa State University on November 30th, 2019. Whereas Section 16 was packed with the entire Iowa State University Cyclone football varsity marching band. Whereas the Iowa State University Marching Band received the Sudler Award in 2017, whereas the Sudler Trophy is awarded to a college or university marching band to recognize the demonstration of the highest musical standards and innovative marching routines and ideas, whereas the Sudler Trophy has made important contributions
to the advancement of the performance standards of college marching bands, whereas the Sutler Committee is chaired by Kansas State University Director of Bands, Dr. Frank Trace, whereas it is not often the case that another university's entire marching band gets to travel to a game, let alone be given the chance to present a Sutler quality performance, whereas the Iowa State University marching band's performance in the stands was very impressive. Whereas members of the Kansas State University Marching Band and the ISU Marching Band were able to engage with one another on the sidelines prior to the respective halftime shows and make great lasting memories. And whereas the opportunity to see other bands perform motivates and inspires band members to better themselves and their programs, be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends the Iowa State University Cyclone Football Varsity Marching Band for its members' excellent performance and contribution to the atmosphere of this year's Farmageddon. And Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to the Associate Director of Bands and Director of Cyclone Marching Band, Christian Karachner, Iowa State University Director of Bands, Dr. Michael Gullimo, Iowa State University President, Dr. Wendy Winterstein, and Kansas State University Director of Bands, Dr. Frank Trace.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 50? Chair Booth. It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 50 unanimously. Are there any objections? Right, seeing none, Resolution 50 is approved. Is there... Is there a motion to consider Resolution 51? Senator Coleman. It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 51. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 19-2051, Commendation to KSU Horse Judging Team, by Casey Kerperin, Max Harmon, and Noah Auctioner. Whereas the Kansas State University Horse Judging Team has competed in 4 judging contests this season, never placing out of the top 3 teams. Whereas the team won both the American Paint Horse Association and American Quarter Horse Association World Championship Show judging contests. Whereas at the APHA World Show in September, the team was 3rd in halter, 2nd in performance, 4th in reasons, and high team overall. Emily Prue was 5th in performance, 3rd in reasons, and 9th overall. Erin Laycamp was 7th in halter, and Allie Leslie was 7th in reasons and 10th in halter. Whereas at the AQHA World Show in November, the team was 1st in halter, 4th in performance, 3rd in reasons, and high team overall. Allie Leslie was 2nd in halter, 6th in reasons, and 5th overall. Erin Laycamp was 6th in halter, 3rd in reasons, and 8th overall. Emily Prue was 8th in halter and 4th overall. Whereas the team is coached by Dr. James Latimer, the team members include Erin Laycamp, Emily Prue, Taylor Bochtel, Chrissy Isle, Lauren Grainer, Allie Leslie, and Emily Meyer. And whereas this is the first year that any 4-year school has won both world championships in a single year, be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, commends the KSU horse judging team on a successful season and 2 world championships. And Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Dr. James Latimer, KSU horse judging coach, KSU horse judging team members Erin Laycamp, Emily Prue, Taylor Bochtel, Chrissy Isle, Lauren Grainer, Allie Leslie, and Emily Meyer, Dr. Ernie Minton, Dean of the College of Agriculture, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Beasley.
Briefly, can you explain what a paint horse and what a quarter horse is?
I can certainly do my best. I'm not a horse judging expert at all myself. I would like to defer my speaking rights. Never mind. Quarter horses are what you think of as like your standard like American horse. Like quarter horses are pretty well rounded. That's what you use. Quarter horses are pretty common. And paint horses are like, it's more of a color pattern, right? Yeah, those are paint horses right back there. Sarah's got it. Wonderful. Good question.
All right, any further questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 51? Senator Clements. It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 51 unanimously. Are there any objections? All right, seeing none, Resolution 51 is approved. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 52? Senator Coker? It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 52. Will the author please come forward?
Okay. Bill 19-2052, Commendations to Dr. Mary McElroy by Bryn Carlson and Shaylin Ward. Whereas Dr. Mary McElroy, professor of kinesiology and American ethnic studies, recently traveled to the state capitol. Whereas Dr. McElroy was recognized by Governor Laura Kelly for her 40 years of service to Kansas State University. Whereas during her 40 years of service, Dr. McElroy has published numerous research articles, books, and monographs on social issues related to sports and physical activity. And whereas she has also participated on key committees at the university level and is the longest tenured professor currently serving in the Department of Kinesiology. Be it resolved that Section 1, Kansas State University Governing Association, commends Dr. McElroy on her continuous support towards the education of the students of the Kansas State University, the students and faculty of the College of Health and Human Sciences, and the Department of Kinesiology for the past 40 years. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Dr. Mary McElroy, Dean of the College of Health and Human Sciences, John Buckwalter, and the University President, Richard B. Myers.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Chair Booz. Oh. Further questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 52? Senator Coker? It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 52 unanimously. Are there any objections? Senator Steiner? Oh, good catch there too. Okay, we'll go back to the motion to approve unanimously. Was there a second? It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 52 unanimously with corrections. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 52 is approved. Right, is there a motion to consider Resolution 53? Chair Booz. It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 53. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 19-2053, Commendation to Peter Logan Bill by Faisal Almandani, Aaron Colasico, Haley Spellman, and Justin Watkins. Whereas Kansas State University hosts the elevator launch pitch competition every year. Whereas Peter Logan Bill, a senior in mass communications, presented an idea, Let Me Hear It Media, that provides a platform for people with different backgrounds to share their perspectives. Whereas Let Me Hear It Media expresses a desire to better the community around it through having difficult conversations about politics and religion, among other topics. Whereas 190 entrepreneurial ideas were submitted to the K-State Elevator Launch Pitch competition. Whereas Logan Bill's idea was chosen as one of the best at this annual competition due to its unique and achievable nature. Whereas Logan Bill's idea won a scholarship of almost $700, and whereas Logan Bill is the news editor of the Collegian and hosts the Collegian Cultivate podcast, be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends Peter Logan Bill for his achievement in the elevator launch pitch competition, as well as his work through the Collegian. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Peter Logan Bill, Senior in Mass Communications, Kaylee McLaughlin, Editor-in-Chief of the Collegian, Steve Smethers, Interim Director and Department Head of AQ Miller School of Journalism and Mass Communication, Dean Amit Chakrabarty, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 53? Senator Beasley. It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 53 unanimously. Are there any objections? Right, seeing none, Resolution 53 is approved. Really great job on commendations this week. We were excited to see that. Approval of appointments. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 54? Chair Watkins. It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 54. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 19-2054, approval of the 2020-2021 SGA Attorney General by the Attorney General Recommendation Committee. Whereas the Attorney General is the head of the judicial branch of Kansas State University Student Governing Association, whereas the position of Attorney General was sufficiently advertised, whereas there were 4 applicants for this position, whereas Article 5, Section 5 of the KSU SGA bylaws states that the KSU SGA Attorney General shall be appointed by the student body president in consultation with the Attorney General Recommendation Committee, subject to the approval of Student Senate. Whereas the Attorney General Recommendation Committee met on November 19th, 2019, and made a recommendation to the student body president for the appointment of the Attorney General, and whereas the following individual has been selected by the student body president in consultation with the Attorney General Recommendation Committee to serve on the basis of their leadership ability, experience, and dedication to serve in the Kansas State University student body throughout the next term. Be it resolved that Section 1, Ashton Hess be approved as Attorney General for the 2020-2021 term of office. Whereas at Section 2, the KSU SGA Attorney General's term shall begin the day following the last day of spring semester classes and conclude on the last day of spring semester classes the following year.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 54? Senator Beasley. It's been moved and seconded to, did you want that to be unanimous? Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 54 unanimously. Are there any objections? Right, seeing none, Resolution 54 is approved. Is Ashton here? Okay. Okay. We'll get her sworn in next time. Okay, got it. Well, let's clap for Ashton anyway. Okay, is there a motion to consider Resolution 55? Intern Phillips. It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 55. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 19-2055, approval of SGA Phase 2 interns by Lily Colburn and Julia Howie. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association intern program was sufficiently advertised, whereas 16 individuals attended at least 3 of the Phase 1 SGA intern program sessions from October 24th through November 21st, whereas 15 of those individuals applied to Phase 2 of the SGA intern program, and whereas all 15 of those students were selected to continue on to Phase 2. Be it resolved that, Section 1, the following individuals be approved as Kansas State University Student Governing Association Phase 2 interns for the 2019-2020 term. Blake Steele, Colton Williams, Cameron Jones-Rose, Betsy Burress, Lane Manners, Bryce Baker, Stasia Mendoza, Braden Funk, Brenda Hurd, Gerardo Hernandez, Nick McKee-Rice, Logan Ebert, Dakota Parkhurst, Kara Bruce, and Ashton Miller.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author?
Didn't spell anyone's name wrong.
Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 55? Senator Coleman. It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 55 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 55 is approved. If you all will come up and get sworn in.
Please raise your right hand and say, I will at the end. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Phase 2 intern and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association. Okay, now introduce yourself with your name, major, hometown, favorite smell. We've practiced this.
Hi, my name is Colton Williams. I'm from Osage City. I'm currently in the business department, majoring in sales. Oh, my favorite smell is probably just like right after fall harvest.
Hi, my name is Braden Funk. I'm from Overland Park, Kansas. My major is computer engineering, and my favorite scent is like when you walk by an ice cream shop.
My name is Bryce Baker. I'm a freshman in marketing. I'm from Ellenwood, Kansas, and I think my favorite smell is cinnamon.
My name is Logan Ebert. I'm a medical biochemistry major, pre-dental. I'm from the hometown of Wamego, Kansas, and my favorite scent is the Caribbean Ocean.
My name is Tasia Mendoza. I'm from Lenexa, Kansas. I lost my voice because I went to the Jonas Brothers concert last night. Sorry. Yeah. My major is marketing and advertising, and my favorite scent is like fresh laundry.
Hi, my name's Betsy Burris. I'm from Stillwell, Kansas. My major is biology, and my favorite smell is probably vanilla.
My name is Blake Steele. I'm a freshman from Overland Park, Kansas. I'm currently a double major in accounting and finance, and my favorite smell is freshly cut grass.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cinder Hurd. I am a major in political science with the pre-law track. I am from Powder Springs, Georgia, and my favorite smell has to be Downy Unstoppables, like the blue one. I'm like addicted to them. Yeah.
All right, Ashton, if you want to come on down. Fancy. Are you ready? Okay. Okay. Yeah, hand up. You're good. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of Attorney General and will to the best of my ability, or Attorney General appointee, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association.
Hi, I'm Ashton Hess. I'm a junior from Lenexa, Kansas, and I'm majoring in geography and history, and my favorite smell is jasmine.
Right, with that, we'll move into committee reports. Are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Booz.
All right, this is my last weekly time for the year. So in Senate Ops last Monday, we talked about really just like some big topics on elections reform. In particular, we spent a lot of time talking about a rank system. We might want to, we eventually came to the consensus that we definitely want to pursue that for presidential elections. And then we talked about it a little bit for legislative, but not entirely sure. Like most of us think that it's fairly good. The current system anyway is fairly good the way it is. So, but if anyone's interested in pursuing that, I'd love to talk to you. Then we also talked about more generally, like maybe doing a demographic survey right when you file as opposed to when you're elected, but that would require integrating with cases, which might be a little harder. But we thought that that was a good idea. And then just more generally talked about that, we want to make sure that the changes that we've added this semester work, and so we'll definitely be reviewing those after the election, trying to deal with any complaints that they have, and hopefully that'll continue into next year's Senate Operations Committee. So really, we won't stop talking about elections, but it'll be bigger topics and more oriented towards like where we want to see elections in the future, like in the next 5 years or so, and maybe working on a ranked system for presidential. So I won't be reporting next semester up here nearly as much, but you'll still hear from me from time to time. So if you have any questions, as always, please talk to me, talk to a committee member, or come to Senate Ops meetings on Mondays at 8 p.m. in the CSI conference room. Thank you so much.
Okay, are there any questions for Chair Booz? All right, seeing none, further committee chair reports. Caucus Leader Glasscock, I'll yield my time.
Howdy. All right, so I'm back, and you people spoke, and we listened, and we think you're really going to like this, because it's time for the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation 2. All right. Now we took your bills of disapproval to heart, and we toiled away in that CSI conference room at 7:30 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I sat down on Thanksgiving break and worked out this report. And my mother said, Creighton, please come take even a sliver of my Thanksgiving turkey. And I said, no, I have to work on this report. And here it is. It's got a whole new look. If you haven't taken a look at it, please do. Put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. I think it's really nice. Larry's was good too, but this one's a little better. So first things first, we did a survey. Here are some of the questions we asked on the survey. Some of the things we focused on were the difference between the legislated and non-legislated responsibilities for each position, and kind of the biggest challenges for people in those positions that year. And to clarify, we gave this to current and former members of all the positions we were looking at. And another thing we focused on was to what degree their position discludes them from holding a job outside of SGA, which we saw as a really important factor. So the first thing that we decided on was we took the position of secretary, which was currently being compensated hourly at a wage system. We decided to nix that because by the survey results that we saw, the position of secretary was most often putting in an amount of work equal to or lesser than the average senator. So we decided to avoid the complication there and just get rid of that system entirely. And we decided to instead use that money to compensate the position of elections commissioner at an hourly rate. And we decided to do that rather than compensate elections commissioner at a tuition rate like the others, is due to the fact that we realized that the position of elections commissioner is it will quite often fluctuate between years. So you'll have years where nothing happens and years where a lot happens. And so to accommodate for that, we decided that we would just have the elections commissioner file their hours with CSI like the secretary previously had. And in that way, we'd be able to compensate them for if they had a year in which the position involved a lot of work. Next up, we took the position of Speaker Pro Tem, took that down a little bit by 10%, just based off of the survey. We wanted to take that closer to the positions of Privilege Fee and Attorney General, which were at 35 and 40% respectively. We saw Pro Tem as a position with similar responsibilities to those two roles, so we decided to balance it out in that respect. Next up, Privilege Fee Chair. We did keep that at 35%. Going off of the survey results that we got from the current and last year's privilege fee chairs, we decided that 35% was an appropriate rate for privilege fee. But we did put a lot of thought into this. We had a lot of discussion over this, and we decided that this was appropriate due to the fact that although this is higher than other committee chairs, they have a lot more of a forward-facing role because they have to coordinate with a lot of both student and faculty organizations to appropriate the privilege fee budget. And I wrote a lot more to this extent in the JCOC report if you'd like to read that. But do let me know if you have any more questions about this specifically. Next up is the on-campus allocations chair. Last report we had it at 12, boom, now it's at 20. Same thing for travel, boom, 20. We figured this is a lot more appropriate than 12, considering they put in an amount of work, I would say not quite at the level of privilege fee, but still substantial. So we decided that 20 was definitely appropriate for both of these allocations chairs. Next up, Synod Ops, we had it at 12, took it down a little bit to 10, but we did see that compensating Synod Ops was appropriate, not quite at the same level as the allocations chairs, but we saw 10% as a good level to keep that at. And GER and DEI chairs, we also gave a lot of thought into these. Sort of the discussion was what you do with these positions that do give in a substantial amount of work, but not quite as much as the other committee chairs. And in the past, we saw that other JCOC, other meetings of the JCOC committee in 2016, 2013 have also kind of struggled with where to put these committees at. 2016 decided to nix compensation for these two committees, GR and at that point, student engagement. They decided to nix tuition for these two entirely. And the one before them decided to put it at a little bit higher level than this.
Time. Time for the report has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator King.
Thank you, Nathan.
Been moved and seconded to extend time for the speaker by 10 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, go ahead.
But we kept these around the same area. We took it down from 6 to 5 because I figured that'd be a rounded number. I don't know, we had it at 6 before. That was kind of weird. But our decision was to compensate them a non-zero amount because they are essential to the SJ mission as chairs of standing committees, and we decided that it's appropriate to show in our legislation how we compensate these positions that they are essential positions. And so we decided to compensate them a small amount, and this comes out to $500 about in tuition per year. One other thing we decided to look at was parking passes. Currently, student body president, vice president, speaker pro tem, and attorney general had parking passes. We decided to add them for chief of staff and deputy attorney general because we saw these two positions as attending about the same types and often the same amount of meetings as those earlier positions. And deputy attorney general is one that was maybe is a new position, and so hasn't had time to be properly looked at by convention of JCOC. So we decided that was appropriate, given Attorney General has one, and Chief of Staff. We see them taking on more and more responsibilities relative to the executive branch, and so we thought it was appropriate to give them a parking pass too. So overall, the 2016 report compensated 515% tuition. We took that down to 500% in our final report for a decrease in 15% of 1 year's worth of tuition for one officer. So that comes out to be a couple $1,000s. Previously, in our first report, that was 17%, so we kept it about the same range as that. I do want to show you really quickly what the report looks like, if you haven't looked at it yet. We kept this section about the same. I redid the graph for the 2016 recommendation. You'll see in our first report there was some erroneous information about what the 2016 recommendation actually was. I think that Larry just got mixed up there, but I made sure that's the correct information on that one. We kind of outlined our pathos behind all the decisions we made here and all of the positions we looked at, even the ones we looked at but decided not to compensate, like for example, inter-coordinator, which we did survey for. And then we went to our recommendations here. Here is kind of a graph or a table of, in terms of percents, how we changed from the 2016 recommendation. And so you'll see 25 to 20% for the allocations, chairs, et cetera. And here is our final table for our 2019 recommendation, and all of those dollar values there here at the bottom. And you'll see the total that we're spending on officer compensation these next 3 years, each year is on average about $45,000. And two other things that I wanted to highlight before we go out here is to answer a couple of the questions that we got in general last time I presented my report. One of those questions was, what do we do if an officer is enrolled in fewer than 14 credit hours? Because we approximate the tuition that we compensate them for at 14 credit hours per semester. So what if they're taking 13 or 12 or fewer? We looked into that. It does appear that they are granted tuition scholarship scaled based off of how many credit hours they're actually taking if it's below 14. So if they're taking above 14, they're compensated based off 14 hours. But if it's below 14, they're compensated on what that number is below 14. And next, we did some digging, and it appears that the 2016 convention of JCOC, they did recommend that for the office of student body president, if they are an out-of-state student, they are instead compensated the same rate, instead based off of 14 credit hours of out-of-state tuition. And we decided to reiterate on that recommendation. And the reasoning behind that for the 2016 JCOC was to avoid discouraging students who are out of state from representing themselves in the body of student body president, and we agreed that that was fair. And that's sort of the oddball in terms of the other positions, because the other positions, you're given the lowest of either whatever tuition ends up being for that year or the prediction for what it ended up being that year for budgeting reasons. So student body president does end up being that oddball there. But that's all that we've written there. We've got a little appendix. We included the bills of disapproval for you. And you'll see we have 60 more pages of officer surveys to look through if you want to. I think they're pretty fun. We got some really good answers from some of our current and past officers. So feel free to look through these if you like. But that's all I have for you guys. Here's the contact information for me. If you have any questions about what went through my head when I wrote the new JCOC report. But with that, I open myself up to questions.
Are there any questions? Intern Coordinator Colburn.
So in terms of like the actual dollars that versus 2016? Let's pull it up. Let's see, so I said an average of $45 or $45,000 a year for our recommendation. So let's look at the 2016 recommendation. That should also be here. So they had, I think their prediction for tuition scaling was a little bit high. So their projection ended up being an average of $47,000 or $48,000 a year for theirs. I predict that the actual money spent on tuition the last 3 years was a little bit lower than that, because I think tuition was a little bit lower than what they predicted. But our prediction is lower than what theirs was, yeah, by about $2,000.
Further questions? Senator Rodriguez.
Hi. Oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. You know, I personally wanted 30. The other members on the committee advocated for 35. The thinking was just that everyone else on the committee had a really hard time decreasing it at all, given the fact that as the pool of money grows tighter, the effort that privilege fee committee chair of what is required of them is going to go up as that pool grows tighter. But the idea being that their responsibilities are going to grow greater as the years go by instead of lessening. So that's the reason behind that for the committee as a whole. Okay.
Further questions? Director Bruner.
Yes. Any scholarship that you receive above the amount of tuition you pay is taxable income, though.
Further questions? Senator Belina?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll maybe scroll up a little bit here, or down a little bit to our considerations area here. But I'll kind of outline a couple of the main measures that we decided on were the kind of in a way we see the funds given by JCOC as kind of a tool to make sure that no students are discouraged from being officers in SGA for financial reasons due to the time commitment of those positions that they're seeking out. So a lot of the time we look at, like I mentioned earlier, to what degree the position would disclude them from being able to hold a job while they're serving that position. So we, to that effect, we looked at how many hours are required by that position, and within that, how many of those hours are by legislated responsibilities that are always going to be there for every person holding the position, and how many hours a week are from non-legislated responsibilities that are going to be, kind of by choice for each person holding a position. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Further questions?
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. All right, further committee chair reports? Right, seeing none, director's reports? Director Bruner.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry I did not update all of you last month about Safe Bar and stuff like that. A lot of things were happening and changing, and I'd be like, okay, we're ready to train. And then someone would email me, I'm like, we're not ready to train. So a lot of things are happening right now. So over winter break, I'll be trying to find the cheapest option to print off the materials that every single bar staff member gets when they train. The people in Lawrence, every single time they train a bar, it costs upwards of $200 just to print off the materials that they use for the training. And then I'm also having trouble with like actual trainers because K-State employees aren't like allowed to spend their work time training the bars, which makes sense. And it's kind of hard to find time where the bars will have time to get everyone there to train, and then also having us being able to train the bars. So I've always wanted this project to be student-led, but I do want kind of an adult there with more experience about sexual assault and violence to answer those questions if like us students can't answer them. And hopefully I'll be working on that over winter break. I don't want to give you all a concrete timeline, but I really am hoping to train one bar in January.
Any questions for Director Bruner? Caucus Leader Kitten.
Great work. Great work that you put in so far. I guess my question is, have there been any thoughts of changing the training structure to where it could be more like interactive or online that someone can do on their own, or like does it necessarily need to be everyone as a group at that specific business?
I know it's at least in person, 80% of the bar staff has to be there for it to be Safe Bar certified, but the people in Lawrence haven't come up with any online thing. I could definitely talk to them about if they're keen on doing that and whether we can incorporate that in our training, but right now it is just in person.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, are there further director's reports? Intern Coordinator Colburn.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to quickly make myself available if anyone had any questions, like about class 2 and all of the people that were or just like how class 2 went. If you have any tonight, I will be giving a report / at the suggestion of former intern coordinator Sadie Polson, having some interns give the report next semester about what that class 2 actually looked like. So that will happen at the first meeting next semester. So just if anyone has any questions, I can answer them. But most importantly, we are having class 3 start January 30th. So that's our first Senate meeting back. So it's just another round of phase 2 classes. So 5 informational sessions. Students are invited to come to all of them, but if they go to 3 of the 5, then they're technically phase 2 interns. However, that looks a little different for next semester since the term ends right about after that. So people are welcome to come, but we're going to be a little bit more focused on, like, of course, what SGA is, and specifically what the legislative branch is and what the elections process looks like. So if you know anyone who's just interested in the intern program, of course, please get in touch with them and connect them with me. The nomination form is still live and active on Engage. So, sorry, Org Central. So you can do it that way. I'd be happy to email them, or you can just talk to them. That's the number one thing that every single intern lists as saying is what brought them to the intern program is a personal recommendation from a friend in the intern program or more often within SGA. So your personal connections matter so much more than any emails or clubs that I go and talk to. So do that. And also, so those people who are just generally interested in the intern program, but if you hear of literally anyone who's running for Senate who is not currently an SGA or an intern, and you think would benefit from learning how to run, or you yourself would want to benefit how to run, I don't know. We do give just like an information session about how elections work and what the deadlines are. So in addition to that elections meeting that happens, it's a really great opportunity for people to just learn a little bit more ahead of election season. So yeah, I encourage you to reach out or get into contact with me with any individuals who you know who might be interested. I stand for questions.
Are there any questions for intern coordinator Colburn? All right, seeing none. Further director's reports? Vice President Karmali.
Okay, so we're going to give you, me and Jason are just going to give you a quick update on stuff we've done this semester, where we're at, just so you can hold us accountable when we come back, and also just so you guys are all in the know. So today we had a meeting with Gene Taylor over at athletics. It was me, Jansen, and Dalton Wilburton, who's the athletics liaison, and that is because we did not meet both of the metrics we needed to for our contract with athletics. So if you remember a couple of months ago, we stood up here and told you we needed about 4,000 students average attendance and 7,000 passes sold total. So we sold 6,700 passes, so we did not meet that by 300, and we barely met the attendance. It was about 4,078 on average per game. So technically that contract is null and void, but we spoke with Gene Taylor today, and he doesn't see any major changes happening. So we're not going to be kicked out next season or anything like that. He said next season, no big issues or anything major will happen. It'll all just be small stuff to try and improve fan experience and try to entice more students to come to the games. A lot of our conversation was around just this national trend that's happening. It's really just across the board that students are choosing less and less to go to these games. And he's saying that's just because of technology and just the cost to attend the games. So really, we're not in any trouble right now, but we might be in the future if, enrollment does flip the switch, but ticket sales don't or attendance doesn't. Then we might have an issue. But right now, it's pretty on par with the declining enrollment, so they're not too concerned. They want to wait, play it out, see what happens with enrollment, and then make a decision from there. So we've decided not to write another contract, I guess, and kind of like lock ourselves in, but instead just we have a built relationship with them where we can just talk it out and have a memo, and we don't need to have those metrics down, because then if we don't meet them again, we're just gonna have to keep coming back and remaking these contracts, which really nobody really knows what's gonna happen a year from now. We could be 12-0 and still only have 3,500 students at the game, or we could be 12-0 and have 8,000 students at the game, and students could be getting turned away. So that's where we're at with athletics. Nothing to worry about too much there. The real estate group that I talked about, I think a week or two ago. So the big motive behind that is really to just build a relationship with the foundation. I think we think there's a good disconnect there, and I think that was also echoed last semester when there were issues with what was happening and how the selection process was made for projects that would be funded. So we're kind of just trying to get more shared governance in there and make sure student input is being valued and heard by them. So our first meeting is tomorrow at 10:30. That's me, Jansen, Lane Lundeen, Ayana Belk, and Alan Hines will all be going to that. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, either before or after the meeting, you feel free to talk to any of us. If you want to get involved, shoot us a text. I'm sure Greg Lorenz, who's in charge of it, would also love to have you on the committee. You can just email me, shoot me a text, whatever works for you.
Okay, and so then lastly, really quick, to wrap up e-scooters for the semester, we are moving forward with a very quick RFP process, which is a request for proposal. And so so that pretty much lays out and it goes public out to all these different companies that offer e-scooters. So you think Bird, Lime, VO Ride, all these different places. So we are about to finalize what that looks like. It's about a 14-page document of things that are going to be required in the contract and then asked to be in the contract as well. So that will be extended next Monday, and then that will be open until the very beginning of January. Once that, the committee will get together and go over every single bid that comes back from those different companies, and then they will be selected. And the goal is on March 1st, we will announce who the company is that will be bringing e-scooters on a campus, and then the soonest that we would see them is April 1st before school ends. That is a very aggressive timeline, and it is made that way so that we can slip on it a little bit. So we might be seeing those after school concludes this semester, but they are most definitely going to be here in August, because the latest that we are putting in there is in July that we would see those. Next, we've been working with the city of Manhattan after this elections. They elected 2 new city commissioners. So next week, myself, Justin Watkins, Ali, and Jacob Land are going to be meeting with them, starting to build that relationship so that we can work with them in the future and build that foundation. And lastly, with tuition and fees strategies, kind of a joint report from Hannah and I, who run that committee. There are going to be no fee proposals next year from any colleges. That's something that, to me personally, was pretty a little bit surprising there, that no one is going to come forward with a proposal. And that's normally what Tuition and Fee Strategies Committee does all next semester. So that is going to look a little bit different about how we leverage that committee. So we're going to work with Provost Tabor on looking at differential tuition, some different models, and then kind of help give the student a perspective in how we're going to plan on proposing that next year is in 2021 to the Board of Regents is now kind of the new date that we would look at doing differential tuition. And then with that, a process of onboarding the new Carl R. Ice College of Engineering Dean and getting him on board for all the fees that are already imposed on College of Engineering students, and making sure that those are utilized in the same spirit of the origination of that fee. So when that new dean is onboarded, we'll be working closely with them to make sure that they get caught up on all the shared governance that has happened over the last decades, and things that they also have to abide by with us students as well. And that is it for our report. Anything that Ollie and I spoke about, we'd love to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for our speakers? Senator Ward.
Yeah, so he was talking to us a little bit about it today. He mentioned, right, like I said earlier, the overall just trend declining of students going to games. And one specific example he did give was Texas Tech. So they don't pay for their student athletic passes. It's kind of just built into their, tuition statement. And so their issue was, all these students had paid for the tickets because they made them, and nobody showed up because nobody cared. And, they tried everything. They tried incentivizing it. They tried doing everything they could to try and get students there and make it more enjoyable for them, and then obviously rally behind their football team. And they struggled a lot. I think they tried it for one game and they had some big giveaway, and they made people wait until the third quarter just so that their seats wouldn't look empty, and everybody still just left because they didn't care. So it's really just a big issue where there's a lot of different causes for it, right? It's coming from our declining enrollment, but then that coupled with not everybody wants to spend $300 on tickets. Times are tough, as well as technology is a lot more advanced right now. You don't have to go to a game to get a full experience. Yeah.
And then one more thing to add on that, something that Dalton Wilbrandt is a lot better at explaining than I, but we actually have a higher rate of attendance, of show-up rates based on the people who have passes. So people who buy passes are actually coming at a higher rate than the last few years, but we do have a smaller number of people buying those passes. One thing that we can kind of infer from that is now with the new system where it's emailed to you and you can log in and you can screenshot it and you can send it to your friend if you're not in town, or send it to anyone. It kind of might disincentivize a little bit buying a pass if you know that if you're only going to go to 2 games, you can put in some group me that you're willing to pay $15 for a ticket, and you're most likely going to get a screenshot of a ticket. And there are different ways that that K-State athletics can make that impossible to happen, to where the only person who can get in is the person who bought it, and doing different authentications like that. But at the end of the day, we want a high show up rate at those games, and we want that section full, and right now it's not.
Yeah. One last thing about that. Gene Taylor was pretty adamant today that he doesn't really care as much about us hitting that 7,000 mark. He really just cares that he doesn't want those seats empty on game days right now. And so that's the biggest concern, because he thinks that looks bad nationally, which I think it does too. And it's harder for the Cats to play as good as we know they can then. He told me if we sold 6,000 tickets, but all 6,000 showed up every game, he'd be happy and there'd be no conversation today, which I agree with, because he was talking about how it's not really that great of a increase or decrease in revenue. I mean, he says that it was $100,000, so it's a lot to me, not to him. So really, it's not about the money they're making. It's more about the fan experience and how it makes K-State and the athletics department look when they're playing on these high-level fields and stuff.
Further questions? Intern Phillips.
Also with athletics, you mentioned that there weren't any big changes, but some small ones. Do you know by chance what those small ones are?
So I don't know the exact, I don't think they've come up with exact changes right now, but Dalton, who's the athletic liaison, he's currently in a working group with Brett Eakin, who's director of fan experience at athletics. And they pulled in a bunch of different students that come from different backgrounds and demographics on campus to kind of bounce ideas off and think about what would entice them to come to games and actually show up. And then, that's kind of how they set their giveaways every year. That's really how they set a lot of things that they do. So they're just going to keep trying to work with that to improve attendance that way for the short-term solution.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move into approval of minor allocations. Before I seek a motion, I'd like to correct on Bills 62 and 63. Chair Booth just pointed out to me, lines 29 should be amended to be $125 rather than the $250. And that's not a substantive change as it's described earlier in the legislation. Are there any questions on that? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minor allocations? Senator Koger. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minor allocations. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Right, the minor allocations are approved. Moving into final action, will the author of Bill 65 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
There was one change on, let's see, line 111, which I don't believe is reflected on this copy. It should be 540102O instead of 0102J. that was the only change we made.
Okay, first right to debate.
Right. So this is the final piece of the Senate Operations Committee's package on elections reform for the 2020 election. So in particular, this makes changes to reporting requirements, including a whole bunch of changes around like presidential campaigns and registering campaign staff, as well as changing their expense requirements. But it also allows people who are running for multi-winner elections, such as most senatorial elections or the other two, board of publications and union governing board, to file jointly if they're running a joint campaign, like a lot of senators end up doing. And then it also does a whole bunch of polishing and many other areas to make sure that what we did is expressed as clearly as possible. And let's see, and so that's most of the changes that we made. And like included in the polishing is all of the stuff in 540120 should be, which, yeah, line 263 should be 54, not 55. Should be, which isn't new. It's just pulled out into the same section. And so that's another like resection formatting thing. So overall, like I don't see any problems with these changes, and I would urge you to vote in favor.
Are there any questions for our speaker? Right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any further debate in the positive? Any debate at all? Right, seeing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote on Bill 65.
Al Abdullah.
Yes, by proxy.
Almadani. Beasley.
Yes.
Belina. Betancourt. Bond. Booz.
Yes.
Bowers. Brents. Burke. Carlson. Carr. Clark. Clements. Coggeshall. Colasico. Cruz. Dowd. Frederick. Gallardo. Gillespie. Glasscock. Hamlin. Hines. Huffman. Jabin. Jonak. Kelly. Kerprin. Kidd. King. Koger. Kurzweil. Coleman. Lomschek. Lux. Matos. Meinhardt. Oxner. Orzakowski. Pelton. Payton. Phillips. I gotcha. Rivera. Rodriguez. Reichert. Seidel. Slichter. Smith. Snyder Ben. Snyder Blaine. Spellman. Wallace. Ward Kelly. Ward Shalin. Watkins. Whitmer. Zimmerman. All right. Vote passes 46-0 to 1.
Right, we'll move on to Bill 66. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No changes were made.
Right, first right to debate.
All right, good evening, Student Senate. I just kind of want to go over a quick rehash of what exactly this bill is, what it will be changing as proposed by the Privilege Fee Committee. So this is a one-year contract of the Fine Arts Fee Fund compared to a 3-year contract as is normal. This is due to us pulling them out of cycle. So the big changes you will see are cuts to AP Design of around 10%. So that's College Architecture, Planning and Design by 10%. A cut to McCain Auditorium of 20%, a cut to Art Department of 20%, and a cut to student orgs of A big percentage number, 28.5, but it's actually a cut of $2,000. Along with that, some increases. So increases to our music department, band, orchestra by 8%, same 8% increase to choral and opera, and a 3% increase to communication studies, theaters, and dance, with all of those funds each being $2,500, specifically earmarked to cover the costs of utilizing McCain Auditorium. Also, we are looking to use $30,000 of reserves. The current reserves for fine arts is $128,701. And since this is a one-year contract and we're kind of wanting that reserve to get lowered in the coming years, we figured this 1-year opportunity would allow us to take a chunk of that and use it just to kind of bump that down and take that pressure off of students a little bit. So the total amount that we are looking to cut fine arts is 7.2%, so $23,600, or if you include the reserve, it is a virtual cut of 16%. Yeah, and really, when we're looking at each of these entities, we're really considering the utilization of the dollars that we give them compared to the value that they present to students. And, if we're looking at cuts, we're looking at, what effect this would have on the value that they provide to students, as well as how those entities are capable of taking a cut while also providing a similar amount of value to students.
Right. Are there any questions for our speaker? Is there any debate in the negative? Further debate in the positive? Is there any debate at all? Right, seeing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote on Bill 66.
Al Abdullah.
Yes, by proxy.
Al Madani.
Yes.
Beasley.
Yes.
Belina.
Yes.
Betancourt. Yes. Bond. Yes. Booz.
Yes.
Bowers. Yes. Prince. Yes. Burke. Yes. Carlson. Yes. Carr.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Clements. Yes. Coggeshall. Colasico. Yes. Cruz. Dowd. Frederick. Gallardo. Gillespie. Glasscock. Hamlin. Hines. Huffman. Jabin. Jonak. Kelly. Kerprin. Kidd. King. Koger. Kurzweil. Coolman. Lomschek. Lux. Matos. Meinhardt. Oxner. Orzakowski. Pelton. Payton. Phillips. Rivera. Rodriguez. Reichert. Seidel. Slichter. Smith. Snyder Ben. Snyder Blaine. Spellman. Wallace. Ward Kelly. Ward Shalin. Watkins. Whitmer. Zimmerman. All right, vote passes 49 to 0 to 0.
Right, with that, will the author of Bill 67 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
I do have one update to make on line 20. So looking at some updated numbers for this current year, the average will change to, say, averaged $58,000 and $90,000 respectively.
Right, you have first right to debate.
All right, so again, kind of same with the last one. So this is a slight decrease in the Center for Student Involvement privilege fee. So essentially what we're looking at for this cut, so it's a cut of $17,000, specifically focused at the amount used for Safe Ride. So while we were cutting the total amount, we are also cutting the amount that SafeRide has to be allocated, an equivalent amount. And so really that was just kind of focused on the idea that we saw those dropping numbers in the actual SafeRide program, and that CSI and SafeRide have been looking at moving to some different platforms, whether that's an updated version of the current SafeRide system, or potentially looking at microtransit systems such as Uber or Lyft. And that was something that the committee saw was really what students would want going forward. You know, there's big interest in the use of Uber or Lyft or other microtransit systems, and the fact that we didn't want to eliminate SafeRide entirely. You know, student reviews of the service show that this is something they see as valuable to students. You know, they want other students to have the opportunity to have a safe ride home when they need it. And so that's why we didn't want to cut it so much that they cannot do the updated safe ride, but it would help to push them to move to a different system. Also, CSI requested verbiage to allow the use of the Week of Welcome and Safe Ride, not reserve amounts, but the rollover amounts. Those are the numbers I just updated, and that's what the current kind of average is year to year on how much they carry over for those. So previously, they were only allowed to use those for those specifically, but with this, it now opens it up to utilization for the total operating budget with approval of the privilege fee. And if anyone is wondering, if you compare it to the last contract, so it may seem like a bigger cut than what it actually is. That's mainly due to that total amount changing due to us moving student legal services and internal audit off of this bill. So those aren't cuts; those are just being moved into either different standalone contracts or other places. Yeah. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Chair Booth.
Yeah, so you changed the carryover reserve average from 80,000 to 56,000 for Week of Welcome, and then 20,000 to 90,000.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you do more explaining on explain more why that was?
Yes. So the first number, the 80,000, that's just due to that number changing over fiscal year 19. So this is an average of the past 3 years. So that's just an adjustment based on that. And actually thinking back to it and talking with Kelly, I think I was looking at the incorrect numbers for the $20,000 amount for Safe Ride. And so this is actually what I updated to is the more correct average over the past 3 years.
Any further questions? Right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate in the positive? Is there any debate at all? Right, seeing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote on Bill 67.
Al Abdullah.
Yes, by proxy.
Almadani. Yes. Beasley.
Yes.
Belina. Yes. Betancourt. Yes. Bond. Yes. Booz.
Yes.
Bowers. Yes. Prince. Yes. Burke. Yes. Carlson. Yes. Carr.
Yes.
Clark. Yes. Clements. Yes. Coggeshall. Colasico. Yes. Cruz. Yes. Dowd. Yes. Frederick.
Yes.
Gallardo. Yes. Gillespie. Yes. Glasscock. Yes. Hamlin. Yes. Hines. Yes. Huffman. Jabin. Yes. Jonak. Kelly. Yes. Kerperin. Yes. Kidd.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Koger.
Yes.
Kurzweil. Yes. Coolman.
Yes.
Lomschek. Lux. Yes. Matos. Meinhardt.
Yes.
Oxner.
Yes, by proxy.
Orzakowski. Pelton.
Yes.
Payton.
Yes.
Phillips. Yes. Rivera. Rodriguez. Yes. Reichert.
Yes.
Seidel. Yes. Slichter.
Yes.
Smith.
Aye.
Snyder Ben. Yes. Snyder Blaine.
Yes.
Spellman.
Yes.
Wallace. Ward Kelly.
Yes.
Ward Shalin.
Yes.
Watkins.
Yes.
Whitmer.
Aye.
Zimmerman. Vote passes 49 to 0 to 0.
Right, with that, will the author of Resolution 48 please come forward. Have any changes been made?
Yes. Okay. So basically everywhere that it said fiscal year 2020, it should have said fiscal year 2021. That's my bad. I'm not a business major. Two entities who submitted proposals got left off the legislation. So we did review them and we decided funding. I just forgot to include them on the original one that went through. So we just added those. Yeah.
Is that all?
Yes.
Okay, first right to debate.
Okay, so the reason that we came up with the decisions we did, our funding got cut from the Kansas Board of Regents. We only had about $340,000 to use and disperse how the committee seemed fit between the 26 people who submitted proposals. Besides that, though, it was really just the fact that the reserve accounts were depleted down to $30,000 as well. So we didn't really have room to go over our budget as opposed to previous years where, they might get $360,000 from the Board of Regents, but then they'll tap into the reserves for $40,000 and $50,000 as well. But we're in a position where we can't really do that anymore just because they've been depleted too much.
Right, are there any questions? Senator Kelly.
So I count that there are 6 proposals, I guess, where the request is thousands of dollars and the allocated number is 0. Can you explain if the justification for those is the same in all of those cases or if it's a case by case?
Yeah, sure. So it was a case-by-case basis. I guess I'll start by answering that question by just opening up what the whole process for EOF looked like this year to provide more insight, and then I can answer any more specific questions from there too. So the committee was selected, and it was a 5-week process. So the first 2 weeks we met and reviewed each application that was submitted to us, and then the committee had discussion, debate, and then they moved to allocate what they deemed fit. After those 2 weeks where we had a rough estimate of what our total allocations were looking like, we then went back to any proposals that were contentious on how much to allocate them. I reached back out to those groups and asked them to provide more information since the only thing we're allowed to base proposals off of is the original application. I then went back after 2 weeks, allowed them the opportunity to provide more insight since we didn't have many funds to give this year. I wanted to make sure that they were dispersed as well as we could make them. So I provided them that time. The ones that got back to us, the next week we then re-reviewed those proposals, and then the following week we finalized all our decisions. So each one that did get $0, it differed in reasoning. A couple of the big reasons that EOF proposals get funded over other ones is one, continuity. So how long has it been funded by EOF and how long has it been benefiting students on campus? 2, the number of students affected. And 3, the type of proposal will be. So will it be a scholarship that only one student will benefit from, or will it be a graduate research position that, it may be one person getting the money, but there's going to be 30 students who will be doing research with them or something. So those factors were measured. If you would like me to touch on any specific one, I could provide clarity for that too.
Follow-up granted.
Appreciate that. So on line 39, it talks about the diversity and multicultural student affairs office. Like you said, continuity. Last year they were allocating $20,315. They requested the same amount for this upcoming fiscal year. And from what I see, they were the largest non-2-0 cut out of all the proposals listed. So could you explain why that cut?
Yeah, so the $20,315 that the Diversity Multicultural Student Affairs Office came up with in their proposal was for 3 different components that they wanted to use funding for. So one was a graduate research assistant position, a graduate position for the office. Another one was scholarship money to provide 2 students who met the criteria that they had set of being, a minority on campus of some different sector that they gauge. Sorry, I don't remember all of them right now. But and then the last thing was 2 student workers that they wanted to pay, I believe, up to 15 hours a week for the school year. So the committee decided that the graduate position would be very beneficial and would have a great impact on the greater community that would be around that person, as with the student scholarships to retain these students and keep them on campus. The justification they gave and the obligations they gave for the student workers in their proposal, which is the only thing we're allowed to consider, it seemed like there was a lot of overlap, and the committee didn't see enough there, enough difference there to justify the need for those positions in a time where we are in, financial constraints.
Granted.
Yeah.
So, I guess, yeah, right, I understand. Actually, I'll just withdraw it. It's going to be hypothetical.
Thank you. Further questions? Senator Frederick?
Yeah, I was just, I guess it's more of a clarification question, but I was looking at your line for number 20 with 85 through 87, and I was just trying, I think that's inaccurate, so I was wondering if you could check that for me.
Okay, yes. So thank you for bringing that up. So Senator Frederick actually emailed me yesterday and told me about this error on line 86 and 87. Since I'm not a senator, I can't move to amend it on the floor. And since it's past Tuesday, since it's past Senate exec, I wasn't able to make it in there since I didn't know about that or notice it then. But if anybody would like to make an amendment, what it really should be is line 87 should be striked and line 86 should say non-traditional and veteran student services. So thank you, Senator Frederick.
Chair Booth? Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to amend. Can you say the amendment one more time, please?
Yes. Strike line 87 and change line 86 to read non-traditional and veteran student services.
So, and veteran student services, right? Okay, Chair Booz, you have first right to debate on the amendment. Oh, thank you.
All right. Really, I'm just doing this because I got pulled over by Lee, who wanted me to do this amendment. I'm pretty sure that, yeah, non-traditional and veteran student services fits that description online, like on number 20 better. And so I don't see any reason not to approve this amendment.
Right, are there any questions? Right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative on the amendment? Any debate at all? Right, seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on the amendment to strike line 87 and change 86 to and veteran student services. All those in favor of said amendment say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Right, the amendment passes. We'll be back on debate on resolution 48. I'll now be seeking debate in the negative. Senator Rodriguez.
Hi. So while reading through this resolution, I was not okay with like seeing how much of some of those entities were cut down and how there's not like a explanation where they're being cut out, as where they were as classes does not explain each of them and their like motives why they're being cut down. So I put it into me and decided to look up the minutes from this meeting, and there's no minutes from the EOF committee, so that's kind of weird that you guys are dealing with a lot of money and there's no minutes whatsoever for all senators to be informed of what's going on. And then I had a chance to sit in the exec meeting this week, and there's no minutes for that meeting as well, so I cannot refer to what we talk about either. And I feel like as senators, we should be more transparent about what we're voting on. So if we're really not sure about what we're voting, this resolution should be considered like really smart, like really think about your voting. Don't vote blindly on this like resolution. There's a lot of thousands of money, a lot of thousands of dollars being used and into play, and you cannot just vote yes because somebody stood up and talk about it. Like, please look up into it, see what is getting cut down, and I would just like to see why overall, because I understand like money is not, it's tight right now, but I just want to see why and an explanation of what these entities are being cut down. Yep.
Are there any questions? I will provide one point of information that President Penny took minutes for Senate Executive Committee since Pro Tem Bothwell couldn't be there, and they were distributed via email to exec. I'll be sure that they're posted as a follow-up.
Yep.
Any other questions? Vice President Karmali?
Point of information. Similar to what you were just saying with Chair Penny, Angela Kay, if you know her, she was taking minutes for EOF, so she just didn't do that. But I can get all the minutes uploaded. We have them. All the evidence is there.
I just want to say, like, you guys submitted this bill last week, so the minutes should have been there by then. If you go back to like a lot of the other committees, the minutes get uploaded either that night or that week. And I just think that we shouldn't be voting on something that we don't have full information on. So that's pretty much where I'm coming from. Because I don't know about y'all, but I take my job seriously, and I would like to make an informed decision before I vote on something that's affecting everybody.
Okay, further questions? Chair Booth.
Why does the lack of minutes automatically mean that we don't have enough information to vote yes?
Because you don't know why these entities are being cut down or they're giving them money to. So there's money on the table. We all care about it. I want to know why these entities are being cut down, because like some of them are important to me. Some of them I even haven't heard of, but I know they're important for people on campus. So if they're not getting the money that they requested, the least that I can do is read why and then make an informed decision about it. Because probably most of you wouldn't even notice that some of these are being cut down and there's no minutes about it if I haven't stood up here today to tell you about it.
Further questions? Senator Snyder.
Did you reach out to the committee to ask why?
I didn't, so I do take that.
Further questions? Chair Watkins.
So what would you like to see?
I would like to probably refer this back to their committee and just explain why these entities are being cut down. Because I feel like if we're voting on something, we should have like a reasoning on why there are changes being made.
Further questions? Right, seeing none, I'll now be seeking debate in the positive. Vice President Karmali.
Hey guys, I'm back. Okay, thank you, Senator Rodriguez, for bringing that to my attention. That was just something that kind of went over all of our heads. We do have all the minutes that were sent out to the group. There was great discussion for every single entity that submitted a proposal. We did deliberate a lot and gave a lot of thought to everyone because, like you said so yourself, it is a lot of money on the table, and sometimes it does get scary when it's a bunch of students making those decisions. So we wanted to make sure that we were going through the right process of deciding these allocations. With that being said, I do apologize again for the minutes not being up, and because of that, if you have any questions about any single entity, I will gladly stand up here and answer any questions about anyone.
Are there any questions? Senator Carr.
Is there a time constraint regarding these funds? So like if we send this back to committee today, would there be any negative ramifications for that?
Yes. So in the statutes and bylaws, EOF has to be done in the first semester. And that's just because of financial stuff that Amy works with, accounts, getting all this stuff worked out with them so that the funds are ready for them to use once fiscal year 21 starts.
Do you know the date that KBOR accepts our recommendations?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Senator Rodriguez.
Yeah, that's a great, so the reason I said the end of the semester is because I don't remember the exact dates that are outlined, but it does state like a specific timeline to follow that occurs in first semester. Yeah.
Further questions? Chair Watkins.
So that's a great question. If this bill was voted down, I would probably be meeting with Amy tomorrow morning to figure out what happens. Do these entities just not get funding? Will they just get them at a later date? Would it be like a week later versus like something would completely have to change? We did not discuss that because, like I said earlier, there was a lot of thought put into each of these entities. And even though you're right, the minutes were not uploaded, I can provide any of that insight that the committee made for each of these.
Further questions? Senator Clark.
Can the administration, like K-State, override our decision if we voted it down and just do it anyways?
Like, no.
Further questions?
I'm
hypothetical.
Can I rephrase?
Sure.
Can K-State override this vote? It's not hypothetical. It's do they have the power to, or do they not have the power?
Do you want to defer to Kelly?
I would love to defer my speaking rights to Kelly.
And I also wish I knew that answer. I honestly don't know. I was sitting here reading through your statutes to see if I could find the date by which that is required, and I also don't see that either. So.
Point of information.
Yes.
Yeah, the bylaws in section 250105, 0106, excuse me, states that the committee shall make its recommendations to student senate no later than the third senate meeting of November in each year. And so that's when, was that when it was introduced?
That was when it was introduced, yes.
Further questions? Senator Kelly.
Especially with some of the previous speakers, just like waiting, the timeline, not mentioning dates and things like this, and how this affects all of that. Back to my original.
Excuse me. Can we please keep the question as a question, not debate-like, and not based on feelings?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I just want to give a little bit of context to the question. The question is, can you empathize with some of the students who are losing jobs, such as graduate assistants?
Too emotional based. Debate like no empathy in regards to the question. You'd like to take it, you may.
Michael, I know that you're a great person. You do a lot of great work. I'd like to make it very clear first and foremost. I did not make any of these decisions. I don't have voting rights. I'm not allowed to influence decisions. I'm just making sure that they're going through the right processes.
Time for questions expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator Beasley. It's been moved and seconded to extend time for questions by 5 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, continue.
So yes, I do understand that's a very pressing concern for you, Michael. But you all also have to realize that this committee was all freshmen or people who did not have previous SGA experience who were supposed to be making these decisions. And they used their best judgment. They did not have any bias in their decision, and they did it in the fairest way they could possible with the help of the advisors, Larry Mader, Kelly Ferris, providing insight into how it was done previous years. Specifically to the working position for DMSA's office, in their proposal, I believe they said 2 workers. The committee did not see substantial enough information there to agree that delegating or allocating out $8,000 was beneficial when we only had $346,000 to play with, or allocate out, not play with. I apologize.
Further questions? Senator Kelly.
Sorry, can I clarify? Do you mean like when Lacey was in charge of EOF?
I mean, they got the allocation.
Right, the $20,000.
Well, they got the allocation for these two positions that we're talking about last year.
Correct.
So what's the difference between last year and this year? That's my question.
Correct.
Would you like to defer to?
I would like to defer my speaking rights to Kelly.
Perfect, thank you. So I pulled up last year's allocations and the actual final numbers from that, and it appears that there's actually probably some additional mistakes on what was actually allocated last year. So looking at the DMSA one specifically, because that seems to be the one that's questioned currently. Last year, they were only allocated for the graduate assistant position, which was $9,890, and then we're also funded for the undergraduate scholarships at $3,500. The undergraduate positions were not funded last year either.
Senator Kelly.
So then, if the undergraduate positions were not funded, where, so it says allocated FY 2020 $9,000, right? Where is that $9,000 going, if not towards the undergraduate positions?
My guess would be that that is a typo.
I can provide some clarity there. Yeah, sure. So the big thing with EOF was Lacey gave me the past 3 years documents. And so it was an Excel sheet basically showing how much had been allocated each of the years. And then I added on another row that had 2020. So when I was making this legislation, I was reading off the previous year's allocation from the spreadsheet Lacey had given me. So it was likely just that she had typed it wrong or there was an error with that.
Granted.
So just to get this straight, this is wrong. So that $20,000 number from 2020 is wrong. You're saying that they were actually allocated 13,000 or whatever? Is that what you're saying?
Kelly did say that, yes. I would have to pull up my files and double check just to make sure. But I do trust Kelly when she says that.
Senator Frederick. Yes.
I can tell you that from the Center for Advocacy Responsive Education, we were allotted 9890, not 12890, and that's what we requested. So I'm wondering if that's the previous request.
If that column got translated, maybe entirely.
Okay.
Further questions? Senator Blaina.
Could you repeat that question, please? I apologize.
Line number 39.
Mm-hmm.
On line number 39, there is row number 4, diversity and multicultural student affairs office. They have been said it has been allocated. It was around 20,000 in 2020. And again, on line number 54, row number 10, that same division was allocated around 9,890. So, can you clarify the breakdown for both of them?
Yeah, so I can touch on the proposal on line 54, the graduate assistant position that was applied for by the DMSA office. Again, that was just something where the committee had received insight, information, and other proposals where it was, similar objectives and tasks for these people to be doing. So decisions had to be made by the committee. We did not have an endless pot of money. I apologize.
Time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator King. It's been moved and seconded to extend time for questions by 10 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, there's 10 more minutes. Are there any further questions? Senator Javin.
I was just wondering if you knew how long the committee met to discuss the funding?
Like, how long total? It was like 5 weeks. We had an hour allotted for each week, but we went over every time. So we had quorum, so we just kept going because nobody had anywhere pressing they had to be.
Further questions? Senator Kelly.
So you mentioned that you had $346,000 to allocate, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us how much of that you actually allocated?
Yeah, so I met with Amy and she told me that it's projected that we'll get around $346,000. So the finalized number hasn't actually been granted to us from Kansas Board of Regents yet. So it's a projection. She told me to stay 2% under that or as close as I could, just so that in case there was a greater decrease, we wouldn't be positive and be pulling out of reserves. So the committee, in their final decisions, tried to keep it as close to $342,000 as possible because that was 2% less than that $346,000.
Further questions? Senator Rodriguez.
Yeah, I can touch on that. Yeah. So it's an application. It's like it goes out with other at-large applications, and then selections are made. And then I believe one position is appointed by the treasurer, which Cy Mari chose to appoint Benjamin Snyder, Senator Snyder.
Further, granted.
Yes, we had a total of 5 applications this year. So basically everybody got on. You know, it's a difficult one to get people enticed to apply for when there's cooler ones, in their opinion, that could be sitting on like privilege fee or something where it's more immediate and longer. But those are who applied, and I'm glad they did because, in my opinion, they were very diligent in their work and they did a great job.
Go ahead. Can we keep the discussion questions germane, please? Further questions? Senator Kelly.
Can you explain what would happen if a no vote happened on this resolution versus a motion to send it back?
I'm sorry, I cannot provide that information. I don't know it off the top of my head. I defer my speaking rights to Parliamentarian Max Harmon.
I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you for 100% for sure, but given that these funds need to be allocated, a no vote would, I would assume it would send it back to committee. It would basically be the same thing. This committee has to be the ones who allocate those funds, and so if Senate denies their report, which is what this is, they would just go back and make a new report. Now, I don't know how that complicates in terms of timelines, but there's that.
If somebody wanted to suggest taking a recess, I think that it could be helpful for leadership and advisors to sit down and look at the K-board deadlines and when that's approved. Senator Kelly.
I move to recess for 15 minutes.
It's been moved and seconded to recess for 15 minutes. Are there any objections? All right, seeing none, we'll reconvene at 9:30.
anything I can do to help right now, or no? Just be present. Okay. I might go to the bathroom. I didn't even think about that. You keep missing. I didn't even think about the fact that you keep missing your chances. So, I will make myself absent for a while. So that way. Oh, if I'm indisposed. I know I'm indisposed.
All right, Student Senate, please go ahead and start finding your seats. While you're headed to your seats quietly, I'd like to just remind you guys of a couple things. I'm a little concerned about the intent of something I said earlier today, so I just want to kind of like reiterate that empathy is so important, like in our governing bodies, like both with each other, both with the students that we serve. However, in this like particular context, you know, I think one of the most challenging parts of my job is fielding questions sometimes. And so I just wanted to remind everybody not to ask opinion or feeling questions, hypotheticals, or questions that you already know the answer to before we jump back into this. So does anybody have questions on that? All right. Yes, Chair Whitmer. It's been moved and seconded to refer Resolution 48 back to committee. You have first right to debate.
I just think after listening to debate, it would be better that we send this resolution back to committee to give us time to do further information and have more time to elaborate on the bill.
Are there any questions? Senator Kelly.
What are the ramifications of us sending this back to committee with this over deadline?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Interfill.
I called the advisor who has advised EOF for many years, Heather Reed, and she said as long as it is approved before the end of the fiscal year, there's no issue. So the only thing that would keep it from people getting the money that they're allocated based on the committee would be if it's not approved before the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. Yeah. So there's plenty of time.
Any further questions? Senator Rodriguez.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
And explanations on why those costs are being made for each entity to be added to the resolution?
Like all 26?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further questions? Senator Carr.
Ollie.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give you the rundown right now. So we figured it out. Yeah, as long as we had introduced it by that date, that was in the statutes. It just now it can now be sent back, and we can re-review it. And as long as we get it done by June 30th, which I believe the committee should have no problem doing, we'll be all good. When it gets submitted back, a couple of big changes we're gonna look at is we are gonna once again reopen the opportunity to any entity to provide even more information since we do have that extended time right now. I'll probably shoot out an email at the beginning of winter break and then give them all of winter break to respond to me. And then that way, at the time the committee meets, we can look at any new information as well as look at rearranging this legislation to better portray the whole picture so that it will be a lot smoother next time it goes to the Senate.
Further questions? Senator Beasley.
This is more of a broad power of the body question. Can we set a deadline for what the time that they have to have a like new version of this bill to us?
Yes.
Do that.
You want to make an amendment?
Do I have something in mind?
Do you want to make an amendment to the current motion?
Oh, sure, I can do that. Okay. I would like to amend the motion so that at the first Senate meeting they have ready to present to us a revised version. Third? I'm looking at you.
What about just before spring break, it's said and done? That's still 3 months of buffer, and that gives us plenty of time. If anything new comes up, we still have plenty of time to hash it out when next time.
We're debating now on
Okay. If there's an amendment, go ahead and make it amendment to the motion. Go ahead and make it, and we can debate upon that if need be. But First, can we finish questions for the current speaker? Any further questions for Chair Whitmer? All right, thank you.
I move we amend the motion so that there's a deadline for a revised bill to be presented to this body by the second Senate meeting of next semester.
Is there a second? All right. Oh, second from Senator Frederick. Senator Kelly. Yes, once.
A motion. We can't amend amendments in the Senate because it's in the statutes. We can't amend an amendment. So now that we have an amendment to the refer back to committee on the floor, if you don't like the time set here, just fail it and we'll make a new amendment.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chair. Senator Frederick. First right to debate.
So I understand the need to have a buffer. The reason I would like to put a deadline on it is to avoid this situation again, where we are coming down to the deadline and are entrapment is a strong word, but put into a position where it seems like a necessity to vote on the matter. And I'd like to put a little bit more pressure on the committee to present anything to us, not necessarily a final version, but just present evidence of change and work done on the bill. Yeah.
Questions? Senator Coger.
Do you feel that by the second committee, I guess,
Don't use the word feel, please.
will they have adequate time to make the report as thorough as possible? Because my understanding was we didn't, this is not a good, my understanding was it didn't go through because it wasn't thorough enough. So do you feel?
No. I understand.
Only
I understand
the question. You have a question right now.
Yes. I believe that with the grounds being just presenting a bill with evidence of change rather than a final bill or a bill with the intention of being passed by student senate, that's really what I'd like to see out of the committee. Hell, even just like a report from them rather than this. Like this amendment to the motion can fail. I'm fine with that. This is just me wanting to express why a deadline like this should be made. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Further questions, Senator Rodriguez.
Ali mentioned that you would open up for the organizations, the entities to ask or resubmit their thing. So would 2 weeks be enough time for those entities to submit their request?
Probably hell no. And again, the reason I made this amendment to the motion is because I wanted to express the desire to put pressure on the committee to show work done. With that, vote no. Go Cats.
Okay, you can't. Okay.
You're fine. Sorry. Fun fact in the statutes, you can't advocate against your own thing, but we all know what Nick's saying, so proceed.
Okay. Debate in the negative. Chair Watkins.
Yeah, hi, just really quickly. I don't think that it's a good idea to put a deadline on them. When we had a bill come in that, frankly, had some mistakes and had some things that needed added to it, people really aren't happy with the explanations and I feel like they don't have enough information. I don't think it's then smart to send it back to them and say you have to give it to us in 2 weeks, which gives them not very much time to come up with the adequate information that we want to see. So that being said, a deadline like spring break, it still gives us plenty of buffer time to consider it fully as a Senate, to take the time to read it, and still gives the committee the time to consider and write up a bill that everybody's going to be proud of and love. I think that's the smarter way to go about it, so I'd say vote no.
Further question or any questions? All right, seeing none, any debate in the positive. Senator Frederick.
So my reason for the timeline, I think that there's a lot of feedback that's already available they could work on over the break. I know that it's break, but still. I also want to talk about the people in these positions. As someone who supervises people in these positions, we do our selection process in March. So we will lose our candidate pools and our deadlines for hiring graduate assistants. So DMSA, CARE, Office of Student Life. We have students who may choose to go somewhere else not knowing if they have a position. So I do think it is really important that we have a pretty quick turnaround deadline because we need to assure these offices that they can hire quality people for these positions by the time they start. Yes, it doesn't start till July 1, but we hire all of our positions in March. So a lot of these positions already have timelines set for March. So spring break would be way too late and it would negate all those processes that are expecting to have this money. So that's my reason for thinking that the second meeting would be good because it would give time. I, as a member who would have to put in feedback, would have more than enough time to do it by that deadline as a staff member too, for my offices.
Are there any questions? Senator Rodriguez.
So I think if you have a deadline that happens over the break and you're able to get the feedback from the minutes put together now and get those things done, then the only things that you're trying to add to that and talk to the committee about are further discussions, which you could do in the first 2 weeks about the new feedback you got from those offices and such.
I'd also like to add, just as a point of information, that bringing forward the amended resolution for the second Senate would be 2 full weeks of classes prior to the time it needs to be updated in committee, not just the one, just as a reminder. Further questions? Chair Watkins.
Is the date set in this amendment the last date that people receiving money from this could wait?
I think it's pretty close because you're going to be inviting candidates and such for those positions, and if you don't have a position available, you can't get it posted through Handshake and stuff. So yeah, I do think that 2-week timeline after, because we don't get back until, that's going to put us at the beginning of February, so we don't start back till after MLK.
Okay, further questions? Right, seeing none, is there any debate in the positive? Or sorry, debate in the negative. Vice President Karmali.
Hello again, everybody. Okay, so I appreciate all the discussion that's happened today and everything that's been brought up. It's very good. I'm at the end, I'm glad that this will be going back to committee and it'll provide us a lot of time to answer more questions. The reason I'm debating against this amendment is because I don't think 2 weeks is substantial time for this committee to relook at everything that this Senate body has brought up in concerns today. I don't think that's ample time. I don't think it's fair that these 4 freshmen who are on my committee should have to sacrifice their break. That's not something they originally signed up for. If they have vacations or something, this shouldn't be interfering with them. If there is something like how Senator Frederick was saying, where they need to hire in March, I do believe we shouldn't wait till spring break then, but I don't think it should be the second week. I don't think that's ample time for us to reevaluate everything and make a holistic new decision that we think will be most beneficial for everybody being impacted by this.
Any questions for Vice President Karmali? Senator Kelly.
Can you make a commitment to us that, if this amendment to the motion fails, right? Can you make a commitment to us that you will work with every one of those organizations to make sure that their deadline that they have for this funding is not conflicted by ours?
If this motion is to fail, I would like to say I and the committee will do everything in our power to make sure nobody's funding is hindered, nobody is losing production or having to lay off people or not be able to hire people. We will move as fast and diligently as possible. while still making sure we are considering everything you guys are bringing up as concerns.
Further questions? Senator King.
Like, why was it the misconception that we had to make a decision today on this, as opposed, and now we're learning that it doesn't have to be, that decision doesn't have to be?
Yeah, so we were reviewing the statutes, I believe, or bylaws, one of the two, sorry. And it said that it had to go through, or not go through Senate, be introduced to Senate on November. And so my interpretation was it has to go through. We called Heather and got that clarification, and she said that she said that she believes it can be sent back as long as we meet that K-board deadline. So once we found that out, I'm totally cool with this coming back now. We have plenty of time. Nobody should be stopped or hindered in their departments, respectively.
Further questions? Right, seeing none, any debate in the positive on the amendment? Chair Booth?
All right, so I'm debating in the positive on this because really mostly because of elections. And so I have a couple dates for you here that I think it would be important to keep in mind. First, February 8th is the general election filing deadline. That's a Friday, the first Friday in February. And then the primary election is on that next week in February. And so if we say have it come back by spring break or a little bit before spring break, like we're already going to have had the general election, we're going to be a lame duck session. And I feel like we will have been focused on the election for a very long time at that point. And I feel like we need to be focused on this bill a little bit, at least in advance of the election, so that it gets some, more scrutiny than it would otherwise. And so I'm in favor of a deadline. I would probably be more in favor of a 3-week than a 2-week deadline, but I'm still in favor of this. So I advocate to vote yes or vote for a 3-week. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Chair Booth? Right, seeing none, is there further debate in the negative? Intern Phillips.
Hello, everyone. So I'm actually a voting member on the committee, the only voting member present tonight. So echoing a little bit of what Chair Booz said, as a committee member, I'm totally in favor of a deadline on this. As you all have mentioned, there's a lot of different concerns about how thorough we need to be, and we completely plan to address those concerns. However, a 2-week deadline, I'm not necessarily sure if that's ample time in order to do that. Just for reference, during the committee, with the amount of applications that we received, it took us 2 weeks just to actually get through all of the applications itself. And with us actually opening it back up to all of the groups, it could just take that amount of time to just go through the applications, much less be thorough in our explanations in the way that we want that to be. So I would definitely much more be in favor of a 3 to 5 week deadline, just as Chair Booz mentioned with elections. So I'd rather not necessarily rush this proposal just so we aren't in the same situation we are right now. The more time, the better, but a deadline, in my opinion, should be set. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Questions for Intern Phillips. Senator Beasley.
Do you believe that all of the entities will be returning to discuss them? I'm sure you'll invite them all, but do you believe that all of them will
Yeah, so I don't necessarily know if they would, but we can't necessarily just hinge our bets on them not, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, we can't necessarily just assume that they all aren't going to. Again, in my opinion, the more time, the better, but I understand with elections that we are in a time crunch, if that makes sense.
Further questions? Seeing none, is there any debate in the positive on the 2-week amended motion? Further debate in the negative? Twice. Go ahead. Oh, no. Twice.
Okay. Hello, everybody, again. So Again, I'm back up here discussing the 2-week deadline. Again, I do want to reiterate that is too short of a deadline. And, maybe spring break is too long. And I threw that out there. When I say that, I don't mean I'm going to wait until the very last week. Again, over tentative timeline that I've been thinking of while I've been sitting there listening to the debate. Over winter break, I will be reaching out to any entity that's already applied for funding. So not reopening the application, but anybody who's already applied, if they would like to provide more information, they then can. I will be sending out a doodle poll for the committee to decide times and days they can meet once school starts back up, because I do not want to take from their time on their break after they've had a hard semester. As soon as school starts again, we will begin meeting and shoot to get it done within 1 month, hopefully. That's the latest. Again, I say 1 month. That's if something goes wrong or something gets delayed. We will move as fast as we can, but I don't think setting a 2-week deadline is beneficial for everybody, because I think we already all notice this is a pressing concern and this needs to get done as soon as possible, while still being while still doing as good of a job as possible. I don't think a 2-week deadline will be beneficial, because all it's going to do is, if we don't meet that, we're going to be back up here second Senate of next semester discussing this again, debating on to move it to another time. All I'm asking for is 4 weeks tops. I think that's very fair. It'll get done before Senator Frederick and any other people who may need to hire in March or anything like that. We will not be hindering anybody's funding on purpose. We will be moving as diligently as possible.
Any questions for Vice President Carvalli? Senator Snyder.
So I guess, let me clarify. When I say propose again, really all I'm going to do is be like, at Senate, this was brought up regarding, so let's take DMSA, for example. At Senate, regarding the committee's decision, there was testimonies from students who had worked in the office calling for a concern to keep that funded or begin funding that. Would you like to provide more insight for the committee so that we can reevaluate this decision we originally made? Stuff like that, really just opening it up for some of these specific proposals that we are more conflicted on, so that we can come to a greater conclusion next time it gets presented to Senate.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, is there any other debate in the positive on the amendment? Or the amended motion, excuse me. Any debate in the negative?
Parliamentary inquiry on if I were to rescind this and then submit a new amendment to the motion.
With the permission of your seconder, you can withdraw it, and it'll be like it wasn't there.
Senator
Frederick.
Senator Frederick.
I'm gonna change it to 3 weeks. Cool. Send it.
Okay. Senator Beasley. Okay, the current motion on the floor is to amend the motion to refer to a committee to a return date on or before the third Senate of the spring semester. Senator Beasley, you have first right to debate. Chair Booth.
Our first Senate is on January 30th, and therefore the third Senate would be February 13th.
Okay. First right to debate.
I'm not gonna go up there. Actually, no. My friend's watching live.
Oh, thank you. You're breaking some. I'm a little rapscallion. I don't know. My opinions haven't changed, except for saying vote yes, which doesn't break the rules anymore. This should be better than the previous amendment. Go Cats.
Questions? Senator Kelly.
Why 3 as opposed to 2? Because there was interest and agreement on more than 2, less than 4, and on the number 3 specifically in some cases. And that's why I suggested number 3.
Further questions?
Yeah.
Senator Coker.
Would the committee, like, as you previously had the idea, they wouldn't have to do their final presentation on the 3rd week, or would this be like
Just
like where they're sitting?
Just to clarify, like the current original motion is to refer this back to committee, this existing piece of legislation. So any changes that would be made would still come back in final action with a recommendation from committee and any amendments.
This amendment is to have them on a timetable 3rd Senate meeting.
Yeah, February 13th.
What would they be presenting on that 3rd?
Potentially an amended. I believe currently, since the original motion is on the reference of the entire resolution, it would be to have that resolution back on the agenda and final action on the 3rd Senate, February 13th. Further questions? All right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Yep, Vice President Carmelli.
Hello for the 6th, maybe 7th time. I've lost count. So why I'm up here for 3 weeks now is, 1, I don't think there's accurate and valid justification for the need for exactly 3 weeks. 2, having chaired the committee for the last process of it and being in that room and seeing how long it takes for everything to come together and get us into a position where we can begin running through these applications. I don't think it's fair, and this is just me being completely honest and being congenial with you guys. Managing expectations, if you set a deadline of 3 weeks, I cannot guarantee that everything that has been brought up in this room of concern will be accurately and thoroughly completed by that date. The reason I'm against a deadline is because I and the committee will move as fast as we could, but we don't want to feel pressured to the point where we are bringing something to Senate that's not our best work again, right? Again, if we really want to rehaul this whole bill and look at everything again, you can't set a 3-week timeline and expect that to be done. But again, if that's not what you guys want to do, if you want me to just come back with the committee, have the minutes uploaded, rework the legislation so everything on there is good, I can get that done over winter break. So really what it is which one do you want to see? Do you want to see the committee rework this whole bill and really reconsider each proposal that's been brought? Or would you like us to just provide the clarification on our initial decisions?
Speaker Pro Tem Bothwell.
Yeah, so one clarification real quick. The applications will not be open back up, so not anybody can apply again. But if you've already applied, then and you weren't granted however much you originally asked for, then I'll give you, or I'll provide you why, and then let those entities come back. So the previous deadline was I was here over the summer in Manhattan, so I began working for the city and for the university. So I began meeting with Amy at the beginning of summer, working on that. And the applications opened up right when school started, and they were due, they opened up in July, and they were due, I believe, end of September, I believe.
Last September, or
Yeah.
last Friday of September.
Yeah, last Friday of September. So they had about maybe a little over 2 months to do it, and then we began the process of actually moving to review the applications, allowing them the opportunity to provide more insight, and then making our final recommendations.
Granted.
Basically every week from when the application closed and we received all that and the members of the committee had been selected to when it was introduced the week before Senate. We met every week, I believe, except for 1 week. Correct me if I'm wrong, Blake, and that was because we would not have had quorum to meet that week. For, yeah.
5.
5, 6 weeks. Yeah.
Further questions? Senator King.
So we had an hour set for each meeting. Every meeting went over just as long. So basically what we did was first meeting, we evaluated roughly the first half of the proposals. We just broke it into two, reevaluated the second half of the proposals. So we kind of just went over until we had gotten around a half. I don't remember the exact times. I could probably go back through the minutes, look, send you that information tomorrow if you wanted it. But we kind of just set, I set the agenda ahead of time for what we needed to do every week to stay on track. And we kind of just went until we got through that stuff. So it's 2 initial weeks of deliberation, half and half. Then a week we provided to the entities to get back to us if we had decided not to fully fund them. So I emailed them, gave them time. Then we came back, met again, made final decisions, and wrote the bill over the last 2 weeks.
Further questions? Right, seeing none, debate in the positive on the amendment for 3 weeks. Senator Phillips.
Hi. So I'm gonna vote in favor of this amendment if it's not rescinded. But basically, so my mom works for K-State. I know how this works. She works with the fiscal year, and I've been around K-State and the way that they do things for a really long time. And I know, like, that she's already thinking about the end of her fiscal year and how, like, she has to prepare for everything. Also, if this was my bill and it had this many mistakes, I would want it fixed as soon as possible. And I know that would suck to work over the break, but that is what I would personally do. And so I think that allowing them 3 weeks when they come back from break to even just at least like fix everything, like make sure that we have the right numbers and like upload the minutes and stuff, which is already there and that we can have access to as soon as it's uploaded, then I think it's not unreasonable to extend that to 3 weeks. Does that make sense? I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for Senator Phillips? Vice President Carmody.
Yeah.
So just for clarification, you would like the committee just to have it like the legislation fixed up, minutes uploaded, the stuff that's already there, that would not be new stuff we would have to generate or new information, correct?
I personally think that it would be fine to just like make sure that we have all the information that we need to make an informed decision about this. I mean, I understand that a lot of things are getting cut, so as long as we can like know why you made that decision and what you talked about, I personally would be fine with that. I know like not everyone agrees with that, but yeah, I do.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, now we seeking debate in the negative. Oh. No, because there's a new amendment. So there has to be 5 calls for positive and negative on each. Debate in the positive. Senator Beasley. I called for negative. Sorry, did I miss a hand? Okay. Okay, Pro Tem Bothwell.
Good evening. I think it's important to preface I'm not in a capacity to where I can make a motion or make an amendment on the floor. That being said, in all the discussion that we've had today, it seems clear that the process of reviewing applications that have already come in and gaining additional information is going to be done again. And from the question I asked, it took about 5 weeks to complete that process. Seeing as though that the committee will be doing it again, and they'll probably be more thorough and ask different questions for the same time, I believe that 5 weeks is maybe less of an arbitrary number than 3 or 4 or 8 or 12 or however many weeks we want to do. So it seems, like I said, not in a position to where I can make a motion of any kind, but it giving the same amount of time that was already done to the same process again, most likely you'll get a better result the second time. With that, I stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Chair Booth.
So I think based on the questions in the initial debate in the negative of this bill, we seem that there's some lack of information and lack of things that were just presented on the legislation. So giving the same amount of time gives the committee an opportunity to provide more detail and more explanation of their discussion and discourse.
Right, further questions? All right, seeing none, is there any further debate and then in the positive? Speaker Pro Tem Bothwell.
Ollie, I'm going to apologize to you right now, but I think that 3 weeks is more than enough time for your committee to meet. I say that for one specific reason: the special committee that I'm on, that's our due date right now as well. We're like rewriting all of DPC guidelines at only 1 hour a week. I think you all will have more than enough time to do that. In addition, 3 weeks is about like half of your initial time, so I think it's pretty similar to what it was originally. And even if it's not, and even if it is like a rush time where there's a lot of work that's involved in this process, I really do believe that like you're a really capable human being. Like I know Blake, who's your member, he's a very capable member. And like, yeah, it sucks that you might have to do some stuff over break, but I think like as public servants, like that's what we're called to do. Like I already have a million projects I'm lining up to do over Christmas break. Like I'm going home for a week, then coming back to get started on things here. So like, I understand that it's frustrating. And I understand that like it doesn't seem like it's enough, but that's a month after we're back. Like we get back and then that's 3 Senates in. That's a whole month of the school year in addition to the month that we already have. And like I trust you enough and I trust your committee members enough for 2 months to be a more than appropriate timeline. So like I know it sucks to like feel this pressure on you right now and everything, but like I know that you're capable and I know that your members are capable. And I think that 2 months or sooner, like I trust that you all would have a great report and would take the time that you would need. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Pro Tem Bothwell? All right, seeing none, any debate in the negative? Debate in the positive? Any debate at all? Senator Beasley. Not needed, but that's fine. Okay, those in favor of the amendment to have this resolution returned to Senate by February 13th, the third Senate, please raise your right hand. Can you count? 2 for proxies. Those opposed, same side. All right, the motion passes. 31. So the amendment to the motion to refer to committee passes on the 3 weeks. I had 31 to 17. That passed 31 to 17. Okay, so the current motion on the floor is to refer resolution 48 to committee to come back by February 13th, the third Senate. Back to debate. Is there debate in the negative, I believe, on referring it back to committee? Is there debate, further debate in the positive? Any debate at all? Right, with that, we'll go ahead and proceed to a vote. Sorry, one more time. This is just referring back to committee to return February 13th or sooner. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Resolution 48 will be referred back to committee with that deadline back. With that, we'll go ahead and we'll move into introduction of legislation. Is there a motion to consider Bill 70? Chair Booth. It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 70.
Is there a motion for the author to summarize? Chair Booth. Are there any objections? You may summarize.
All right, thank you. So Bill 19-2070, amendments to the KSU SGA Constitution concerning K-State Polytechnic representation. I'm just going to go ahead and go through authors and whereas clauses, but kind of leave out the governing documents portion and just explain. So by Nick Beasley, Andrew Booz, Nathan Bothwell, Madeline Burke, Max Harmon, and Hannah Heatherman. Whereas it is necessary to continuously review the Kansas State University Student Governing Association KSU SGA governing documents, whereas KSU SGA is designed to serve as a platform for all students at Kansas State University to give input on relevant student policies, whereas the K-State Polytechnic campus currently has no voting representation in KSU SGA, whereas K-State Polytechnic SGA currently has a representative sit on the student body president's cabinet, whereas KSU SGA Student Senate currently has representation from other shared governance partners, including Faculty Senate and the Office of Student Life, whereas policy changes and recommendations set forth by KSU SGA have the potential to affect the students of the K-State Polytechnic campus, whereas K-State Polytechnic SGA has expressed an interest in collaborating further with KSU SGA, whereas K-State Polytechnic SGA leadership has spoken highly of the value that they have received from attending KSU SGA events during the 2019-2020 term, whereas the smaller size of the K-State Polytechnic campus makes it challenging to have large quantities of students invested in the shared governance process, whereas providing the opportunity for a K-State Polytechnic student to exercise the full responsibilities and privileges of a student senator would give additional student support and advocacy for the most pressing issues to the K-State Polytechnic SGA, and whereas allocating a student senator position to the K-State Polytechnic representative will help foster a stronger relationship between the two campuses. So this isn't like reapportioning the current amount of student senators that we have. So we would go from 62 student senators to 63 with one seat, and coming from that Polytechnic student, when Nathan and I first started working on this, I'm just explaining a little bit. When we first started working on this, we contacted the Polytechnic SGA leadership multiple times as we've worked with them a lot through the year, and they're very supportive of this. We have in like our constitution that, you know, any member of KSU SGA is a student that takes 1 credit hour or more at the main campus. So they're unable to be added as authors, but I would like to say that 9 of them requested to be authors on this resolution. It just wasn't, or this bill, it just wasn't feasible. So I would like to also point out that our standard attendance policy for student senators would not be in full effect for this person.
Are there any questions for the author? All right. Oh, sorry. Senator Frederick.
Yes, we can change that.
Duly noted. Are there any other questions for the author? All right, hearing none.
All right, is there a motion to consider Resolution 56? Senator Colasico. It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 56. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 19, 2056. Recommendation to retire Ed Neely's jersey number by Cameron Koger. Whereas Ed Neely was a basketball player at Kansas State University from 1978 to 1982, an NBA player from 1982 to 1993, and a Kansas Sports Hall of Fame inductee in 2014. Whereas 37 years after graduating from Kansas State University, Neely's record of most career rebounds still stands at 1,071, or 8.7 per game. Whereas, in addition to his rebounding record, he is also the only player in school history to compile 1,000 points and 1,000 rebounds. Whereas, since the formation of the NBA in 1976, Neely is one of 16 Wildcats to be selected in the NBA draft. Whereas, he is one of 3 former K-State players to win an NBA championship since 1970, among which he is the only player not to have his jersey retired. Whereas Neely also set a high standard in the classroom as a 3-time academic All-Big 8 selection and a 2-time academic All-American. Whereas born in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and graduating from Bonner Springs High School, Neely has been a great advocate for athletic talent the state of Kansas has to offer. Whereas just 30% of the men's basketball retired jerseys are from players within the state of Kansas, and whereas K-State's basketball hasn't retired a jersey in more than a decade, with the last jersey being retired being Willie Murrell and Mitch Richmond on February 28th, 2009, be it resolved that Kansas State University SGA recommends the retirement of Ed Neely's jersey number 45 to Kansas State Athletics. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Ed Neely, Kansas State University Athletic Director Gene Taylor, and head basketball coach Bruce Weber. Any questions?
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none. Oh, sorry. Senator Phillips.
I believe it is important to the student body that we uphold athletic excellence and as such recognize the excellence that was Ed Neely at Kansas State University. Also,
Come on, we're so close.
if my parents are watching, they might have fallen asleep. He was their favorite player, and I think it is important for me to reflect on my parents encouraging me to come to Kansas State and Ed Neely's impact on my parents.
No. Further questions?
Thank you.
All right, seeing none, we'll move into second open period. Are there any second open period speakers? It's intro. Intern Phillips.
Sorry, guys, I know we're all trying to get out of here, but okay, so based on the EOF decision tonight, just so the committee knows what best to do moving forward, can I do a hand vote? Is that a thing? Cool. So basically, the committee's just trying to best determine what we want to come back with next time so that we don't have tonight happen again. So basically, we just want to make sure if the concern is with like the presentation of the bill, basically like the numbers being wrong and just like the different technical things like that, the rationale, versus the actual substance, like which organizations were funded, which ones were not funded. So basically, if there's a problem with that or the presentation or both. So I guess hand vote if that's okay. All those with the presentation, raise your hand. Yeah, all those with the substance, so like specific organizations being funded. And then both. Cool, we got a lot both ways. So yeah, you guys can either reach out to me if you have specific concerns. So our plan is to definitely re-engage with those organizations, and then, but yeah, reach out to us with specific concerns. I'm open for questions.
Questions? Senator Carr.
I
Okay.
yeah, I defer to Vice President Karamali.
Yeah, those minutes will be up by the end of the workday tomorrow. Yeah, and I'll send out an email to the listserv to let you guys know. I can attach it there too. Everything we already have, I'm gonna get that out as soon as possible. New information, we'll work as fast as we can.
Further questions? Senator.
Kind of crosses the lines between like the structure of the bill, substantive changes to it. Will you be adding, as part of it, will you be adding whereas clauses to give clarification to actions taken by the bill?
Yeah, go ahead.
Defer.
Yeah, I promise Senator Rodriguez that there'd be an explanation for every single entity on that bill website.
Further questions? Right. Seeing none, further second open period speakers. Chair Watkins.
All right, these are the shout outs, but I'm going to try to do them really quick. Donnie for always looking fly. Senator Rodriguez for asking about reasons regarding EOF cuts. Andrew, roses are red, Bill Snyder is gone. A prom without you would be a huge yawn. Sarah Pelton for being a big horse girl. Lily is just the best for sharing hot chocolate. Shout out to everyone here for making a difference on campus and wanting to give back to K-State. Go Cats. Shout out to Ollie's mustache. Please shave. Props to intern Brenda for being an at-large member of DEI. Def the best intern, it says. Shout out to Nick B, the man, the myth, the Blazer legend. I don't know what that means. Senator Bowers for helping clean up spilt milk. Senator Kroger's tie. Enough said. What? Oh, there's definitely an R in this one. Sorry, man. Whoever gave you a shout out doesn't know how to spell your name. I'm just reading. Senator Rodriguez for taking a firm stance on a tough issue. You are a star. A lot of these tonight. Shout out to Blaine Snyder for having a PC to hook up to the TV at our GR meetings instead of a lame Apple like Justin. Ali Karamali for being a champ tonight. Frat snaps for Pro Tim Bothwell. Frat snaps for Cameron. But, okay. Senator Beasley for all his work on behalf of students in his commendations and time and effort in Senate. Thanks to Natalia for keeping everyone in SGA accountable for their actions. Haley Spellman for being the best buddy. Senator Cameron Kroger for his incredible tie and even more incredible resolution. Koger, sorry, man. That one didn't have an R. That one was on me.
Okay. Any other open period speakers? All right. Seeing none, reference of legislation, Resolution 48 and Resolution 56 will both be referred to the Senate Executive Committee, understanding, with 48 likely held there. And then Bill 70 will be referred to the Senate Operations Committee. And with that, we'll move into second roll call.
All right. Yep.
Yes. Yes, because it has to be referred to as Senate Standing Committee. Where, since the chair is a member of that.
All right. Roll call. Al-Abdullah, Almadani, Beasley, Belina, Betancourt, Bond, Booz, Bowers, Brents, Burke, Carlson, Carr, Clark, Clements, Coggeshall, Colasico, Cruz, Dowd, Frederick, Gallardo, Gillespie, Glasscock, Hamlin, Hines, Huffman, Jabin, Jonak, Kelly, Kirprin, Kidd, King, Koger, Kurzweil, Coolman, Lomshek, Lux, Matos, Meinhardt, Oxner, Orzakowski, Pelton, Payton, Phillips, Rivera, Rodriguez, Reichert, Seidel, Slichter, Smith, Snyder Ben, Snyder Blaine, Spellman, Wallace, Ward Kelly, Ward Shalen, Watkins, Whitmer, Zimmerman. All right, 41 present.
Right, is there a motion to adjourn? Senator Coker.
I move that we adjourn until the first Thursday after break.
January 30th?
Point of order, does the day that we have the meeting and the place actually have relevance? Because it's a regularly scheduled meeting in the same location. And I'm tired of getting corrected every single week.
Please say that you move to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Then just, yeah, second. So it moved and seconded to adjourn. Have a great break if I don't see you.
What's the